Good evening, board members and community. Welcome all to the regular meeting of the Dover Board of Education. Buenas noches a todos. Bienvenidos a la reunión ordinaria de la Junta de Educación de Dover. This meeting, which is hereby called to order at 7:42 p.m., is in compliance with the requirement of the law. Public notice was posted in the office of the Board of Education and communicated to the Municipal Court and the Daily Record on July 17, 2020. Due to the current public health emergency, this evening's meeting is being conducted as a virtual meeting. Instructions for accessing and participating in the virtual meeting were posted on the district website, dover-nj.org. Please join us in saluting our flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Dr. Sainer.
Please remain standing to honor our Dover family that continues to fight against COVID-19 and for those that have experienced loss of life. We also remain standing for all those across our nation that have suffered and been traumatized and witnessed loss of life due to social injustices.
Thank you all. We may be seated. Mr. Minkowitz, attendance roll call, please.
Ms. Catano.
Present.
Mr. Miller.
Here.
Ms. Mullen.
Here.
Ms. Nutting.
Here.
Mr. Robles.
Present.
Ms. Ruiz.
Here.
Dr. Sainer.
Present.
Ms. Viveros.
Present.
Ms. Grisales.
Present. Thank you. Mr. Minkowitz, could you please proceed with Mr. Robles' oath?
Yes, I sent to Mr. Robles the required oath for school board member. If he would be kind enough to read it, the first two paragraphs.
Sure. I, Benjamin Robles, do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of New Jersey, and that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same and to the governments established in the United States and this state under the authority of the people. So help me God. I, Benjamin Robles, do solemnly swear that I possess the qualifications prescribed by law for the office of member of a Board of Education, and that I am not disqualified as a voter pursuant to RS 19-4-1, nor disqualified due to conviction of a crime or offense listed in NJS 18A-12-1, and that I will faithfully, impartially, and justly perform all the duties of that office according to the best of my ability. So help me God.
Thank you, Mr. Robles. This was sworn and subscribed to me, and I will send a copy to the County of Morris. And thank you. Congratulations.
Thank you.
For those of you that are not familiar, this is applause or yay in ASL. Thank you. The board recognizes the value of public comment on educational issues and the importance of allowing members of the public to express themselves on school matters. To ensure fair and orderly expression of such comment, each statement shall be held to a time period of 3 minutes while read. Public comments limited to items on this agenda should be entertained for approximately 30 minutes upon the discretion of this presiding officer. Since this is a virtual meeting occurring during the COVID-19, public comment has been solicited through the Google form on the district's website, www.dover-nj.org. Please understand that public comment portions of the agenda are not structured as questions and answer sessions, but rather they are offered as opportunities to share your thoughts with the board. The board may or may not respond to public comments. However, All comments are considered and will be investigated and addressed as appropriate. Please be courteous and mindful of the rights of others when providing comment. Comments may not be abusive, obscene, threatening, or irrelevant. Please understand that students and employees have specific legal and privacy protections. The board is not permitted to respond in public to comments about students or employees. Please be advised that you are commenting at your own risk. Any public comments that are directed at a particular individual or individuals could subject you to legal liability for defamation. Mr. Minkowitz, could you please proceed with comments submitted tonight, please?
Yes, I believe there are maybe 5 or 6 in varying lengths. I will start with number 1.
I'm sorry, Mr. Crude, would you please ensure and hold us accountable to the 3 minutes and 30 minutes in total, please? Thank you.
Number 1 is George Knowles, 12 South Street. Dover School District should provide universal testing for COVID-19 to ensure a safe environment for students and teachers. I, George Knowles, have brought to the Dover.
Jim, I think you're reading off of the not restricted list. Should we be on the agenda items only, or?
Yes.
Yeah,
Okay,
so
sorry about that.
that's okay.
Okay, let's start again. So
Okay,
the agenda items.
Start
only.
again.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Dalapoulou.
This question statement is in regard to the request from the superintendent to the Dover BOE to attest to the completion of his merit goals and the pay attached to those goals. I would hope that since request is being made that the board has received and reviewed the superintendent's evaluation, the public has not had the privilege to hear that review yet. I would request that the full board remembers that this superintendent was hired at an unprecedented salary of $30,000 higher than the previous superintendent, and with an again unprecedented contract term of 5 years. The board has most definitely given its support and trust in the superintendent on behalf of the district and public. As the board is aware, we are in a time of complete uncertainty for so many of the Dover citizens and families. I would hope that acknowledging that the superintendent, with the help of new hired employees and paid consultants, has done his job as expected when hired, the families, students of Dover now need the board to also realize the need for sacrifice. Families are facing loss, eviction, hunger, and stresses of a completely unique time. The board can choose to attest to the validity of these goals the superintendent set himself. But can the board really attest to the need for merit pay? Does rewarding an employee of just 1 year help the students the superintendent is doing his job? The proof of doing it well is hard to measure in this time. The board has put its long-term faith in the superintendent, but can't and won't know the outcome of his hard work for some time. I believe the merit pay should follow that time. I believe the merit pay should follow that time frame. Put the students and their dire needs first. The next item. Dr. Ernest Palestis, agenda item. Dear members of.
I'm sorry, Mr. Minkowitz, is that the next item or is it Ms. Fontana's item?
Thank you. I'm inquiring about the marching band season, since on the agenda for this evening, I only see the sports coaching positions being approved, but not the band staff. Both of my children signed up for marching band and received dates for physicals, but I do not see any listings of the director positions. Thank you. Dr. Ernest Palestis, agenda item. Dear members of the Board of Education, having read your agenda, I became aware of a new warning. Please be advised that you are commenting at your own risk. Any public comments that are directed at a particular individual or individuals could subject you to legal liability for defamation. Congratulations, your attempt to practice censorship has reached a new low. Now you have added intimidation as another way to silence people. I have a few questions. Will this board take legal action against parents who dare to make comments? Will you take legal action against staff who dare to make comments? Is this your way of welcoming public comment? Since January of this year, I have observed the Dover Board of Education attempt to hide the truth and practice censorship. The board attempted to silence a seated member of the Board of Education. Don't believe me? Watch the videos. The board has used Robert's rules to silence those with different opinions. Don't believe me? Watch the video. The board uses email that is sent to an inner circle, but not the full board, to discuss issues in advance, promote personal agendas, promote the agendas of outside organizations, talk about staff, criticize departments at the high school, and advocate that race, ethnicity, culture, and gender be a factor in the decision-making process. Don't believe me? Then I suggest you release 100% of your board member email and let the public decide. The board discusses board business prior to the actual meetings and then just approves motions about decisions that were already made. Don't believe me? Just read the inner circle emails. And now this board threatens the public with legal action for telling the truth. Let me borrow a line from a movie. You can't handle the truth. Let me talk about defamation with the little time I have left. Perhaps the department at the high school that was defamed should contact an attorney and charge this board with defamation. Perhaps the administrators who were defamed should contact an attorney and charge this board with defamation. Perhaps the other staff who were defamed should contact an attorney and charge this board with defamation. Perhaps the police who have been defamed in social media posts and in the newspaper should contact an attorney and charge this board with defamation. Finally, everyone who has participated in or observed the last few board meetings knows that I've raised many issues in regards to the Dover Board of Education. So if this board believes that I have not spoken the truth, I challenge you to prove it. These are your emails, your social media posts, your actions at board meetings. My comments are based upon what you said, what you wrote, and what you do at board meetings. I was encouraged to see some board members actually ask questions during the board retreat. Remember, you answer to the community of Dover, not individuals on this board. I salute your bravery. I say this because the last few board members who spoke up and asked questions are no longer on this board. Finally, may I ask if this new agenda language, which could have the effect of intimidating.
That was the 3 minutes. Is it very close to the end?
Yeah, last sentence. Finally, may I ask this new agenda language, which could have the effect of intimidating Dover residents, was approved by each and every member of this board before it was added to the agenda? Was there a vote, a new board policy? I believe the public has a right to know. Respectfully submitted, Dr. Ernie Pelestis. The next comment. In the past 4 months, millions of workers in the private sector have seen their jobs eliminated or their hours cut.
Mr. Minkowicz, can you just provide who it was from, please? I also missed the first one. Who was the first comment from? Please, can you repeat that? I'm sorry before you go on. Sorry to have you.
Sorry about that. That's okay. That's okay. I'm sorry. The first comment, Susan Shower. The second comment, Lori Fontana. Then Dr. Pelestis. The next comment is TC McCourt. In the past 4 months, millions of workers in the private sector have seen their jobs eliminated or their hours cut. Managers have had bonuses or incentive pay eliminated or delayed. Can the board members please explain to the public how they can rationalize authorizing merit pay for the superintendent and assistant superintendent at a time when our economy is still reeling from the effects of COVID-19 and our school district's financial situation is still somewhat murky? Wouldn't it be wise and even magnanimous on the part of Dr. McLaughlin and Ms. Delapalou to waive their merit pay until our situation becomes clear? The next comment is from Maria Chacon, 82 East Blackwell Street. Good evening, BOE members and superintendent. Current agenda comments. Since there are new open positions, will you be speaking to the principals to make sure they select candidates that are diverse to include Black or brown teachers, instructors? References from agenda. Open position in East Dover Elementary School, effective September 1, 2020. Open position as part-time speech language pathologist, effective June 17, 2020. Open position in Dover Middle School, effective July 1, 2021. In the last board meeting, I asked the same question. Provide details on 5561, use of physical restraint and seclusion techniques for students with disability. Well, that's a separate question. Third separate question. Will Tiger Rep be included in the Dover Middle School? Approves the contract with Department of Children and Families for the Tiger Rep program. That's the end of the comment.
Thank you, Mr. Minkowitz.
Oh, wait, nope, that's the end of that comment, sorry. I still have two more, I believe,
Okay,
or a number more. The next comment is Teresa Mendoza, 36 Adams Avenue, Victory Gardens. Greetings, board members. For merit pay to be paid out, is there any provision in the contracts for proven measurable return before it is paid? Merit pay works well as an incentive, but my experience is that it is typically offered in exchange for some effort that has produced a measurable improvement or produced positive ROI, return on investment. Based on what I read in the agenda, it is not clear what was produced in exchange for the merit pay. Kindly advise. Thank you, Teresa Mendoza. Number 8. There are 12. I'm on number 8. Kevin Pillsbury, 183 North Sussex Street. How can race and gender studies, the dark history of America, our history of racism, slavery, eugenics, etc., and civics be better incorporated into the curriculum? Comment number 9, Felipe Davia, Dover. I'm concerned about the Dover policy regarding student privacy and immigration enforcement. Our school district's job is to protect the student body, not to enforce immigration law. This policy states the superintendent and school district attorney must be consulted with before making any decisions without taking into consideration that neither of these two individuals are immigration attorneys. There should be zero wiggle room for the superintendent or school district attorney to make a decision on the enforcement of immigration of any student. According to the New Jersey Alliance for Immigrant Justice, under the 10th Amendment to the U.S. Constitution, the federal government is not allowed to compel state or local governments, including school districts, to enforce immigration law. Comment number 10 is Gabriel Gomez, 85 Brook Drive. As a current student at North Dover, I'm quite uneasy about the Dover policy regarding the student privacy and immigration enforcement. Our district is meant to educate and protect the students that it serves. Wait a minute. Sorry about that. Let me start again.
just Mr. Crew, just make sure you start the clock again, please.
I will.
As a current student at Dover High, I'm quite uneasy about the Dover policy regarding the student privacy and immigration enforcement. Our district is meant to educate and protect the students that it serves, not enforce. I'm having trouble reading the end of it.
Immigration law.
Not enforce immigration law. Neither the superintendent or district attorney are immigration lawyers. There should be no way for the superintendent or district attorney to make any decisions on the enforcement of immigration when it comes to government is not allowed to compel state or local governments, including school districts, to enforce immigration law.
Mr. Minkowitz, I think we
Yes.
did leave out a little piece of that statement, and I have the whole piece. I just want to make sure we don't cut
I got it,
anything
I got
out.
it.
Okay.
Neither the superintendent or district attorney are immigration lawyers. There should be no way for the superintendent or district attorney to make any decisions on the enforcement of immigration when it comes to the student body. According to the NJAIJ, under the 10th Amendment of the U.S. Constitution, the federal government is not allowed to compel state or local governments, including school districts, to enforce immigration law. Comment number 11, Lynn Laurie, 10 Hillside Avenue. At the last meeting, training from School Board Association was conducted on setting goals by BOE. Then the Dover BOE discussed setting their own goals. On the agenda tonight, there is an item on superintendent merit pay. That pay is based on the goals of the superintendent set for himself. It's not based on BOE goals because the BOE never set goals for the superintendent. One of the new board members at the last meeting asked to see the goals of the BOE for the past year. They should have been told that there are no goals because the BOE never set any. I don't know how a vote can be taken on merit pay at this time. There's one more comment. Carol Leon, 8 Millbrook Ave. I'm concerned about the Dover policy regarding student privacy and immigration enforcement. Our school district's job is to protect the student body, not to enforce immigration law. This policy states the superintendent and school district attorney must be consulted with before making any decisions without taking into consideration that neither of those two individuals are immigration attorneys. There should be zero wiggle room for the superintendent or school attorney to make a decision on the enforcement of immigration of any student. According to the New Jersey Alliance for Immigrant Justice, under the 10th Amendment to the U.S. Constitution, the federal government is not allowed to compel state or local governments, including school districts, to enforce immigration laws. That's all I see for public comment.
Thank you, Mr. Minkowitz.
Thank you.
Dr. McLaughlin or Ms. Dalapoulou, is there any of those comments that you would like to address at this moment?
Let me address, I believe one of the questions came up about hiring. Certainly, I think that's an issue that's been discussed, and I want to clarify that although certainly it is unlawful for employers to promote, hire, or make other employment decisions that are based on race, ethnicity, religion, or other factors like that, our goal is to hire the best people to work with our students. We have made a commitment to do that and have made many efforts to recruit from a wide variety of areas and in a wide variety of ways. So we are very committed to the process of hiring the best students, the best teachers to work with our students, because our students certainly deserve that. And I think one of the challenges that is in front of any school district is to ensure that we have a wide net, that we have relationships with colleges and universities, that there's no one who doesn't hear about employment in Dover, and also that we project ourselves as a professional destination that is desirable. And I think that many efforts have been made in that regard this year. It has shown in the increase of our applicant pool. One of our supervisors commented to me that last year for positions that she advertised, they were in the single digits. And this year for a similar position, she had somewhere in the area of 26 to 30 applicants. So that's a significant increase. We're going to continue to dedicate ourselves to that process. And again, making the best hiring decisions possible. So that was one area that I certainly wanted to comment upon.
Dr. McLaughlin, I know that you have shared with the board at other, especially in your updates, what are some of the, in regards to that comment, what are some of the efforts that you have done? You provide a few examples, how it went from single digit applications to maybe 30, and where are you advertising that it made a difference?
Right. One big area is that previous to this year, the district was not employing any digital recruitment tools. So we now have a digital application process, which is also combined in a seamless way with recruitment tools that teachers look at, such as schooljobs.com and other multiple areas that teachers look at digitally to find employment opportunities. We've made it easier for teachers to apply because previously they had to mail in their application or fax it to the office. So that in and of itself was a big step. But I think the other big areas have been relationships that have been built with colleges and universities who have teachers who are ready to enter the job market, and particularly in areas of need. So for example, we formed a relationship this year with the College of New Jersey, who is providing actually in-house courses that promote bilingual certification and ESL certification among our own staff. But we have 26 staff who now, when they emerge from that program, will be eligible to fill necessary positions in the district. So that's another example. Ms. Dallapaloo in her office has done quite a bit of work in terms of establishing student-teacher relationships. Our understanding is that for a number of years, student teaching was wasn't active in the district, and the district wasn't taking advantage of allowing those teachers who are on the threshold of entering the workforce to come and to do their field experiences in Dover. One of the things that you find is that when people have that experience and have their first taste of working in our schools, that they fall in love with that setting, and that we also get to see them in action. And so that's a great recruitment tool all by itself. So those are some of the efforts. In addition, although he wasn't able to fully enact this, Mr. Bullock in the Human Resources Office has begun to register and participate in recruitment fairs, which we also understand was not part of the district's approach to hiring in the past. But that means going out to schools, presenting our school to interested applicants on campus, along with other districts who are there recruiting for specific positions. And although the on-site recruitment fairs what cut short because of COVID, Mr. Bullock did participate in some virtual recruitment fairs, and is prepared when COVID is hopefully behind us to do that in-house type of work that we know will continue to build our array of people to select from.
Thank you. Any other public comments that you would like to respond to? Okay. Mr. Crew, if you could provide, in regards to the public comment paragraphs that we are not reading, could you please address the board and the community in regards to the thought process and how it came about? I believe we discussed a little bit of this last meeting as well. Would you give us a refresher, please?
Yes, yes, that's correct. That language is not new at this meeting. It was on the agenda at the prior meetings as well. And the intent of that language with respect to, and I'm just pulling it up just so I could read the actual language. The intent of the language indicating that individuals, any public comments that are directed at a particular individual or individuals could subject them to legal liability for defamation. That is not the board that would be taking action, and the board is not, in making that statement, the board is not saying that the board would bring an action against anybody for defamation. What that's just advising people is that when they make comments in public about an individual, they could be subjecting, could possibly, if they, if they say things that are inappropriate and defamatory, they could be subjecting them to legal liability by those affected individuals. So that it is not about, it has nothing to do with the board threatening anyone to take any action. That's not the case at all. It's just a more important, probably part of that paragraph is the first part of it, which talks about the fact that students' employees have specific legal and privacy protections, and making sure that people understand that the board is not permitted to respond in public to comments that are made about students or employees. And so it's sort of related to that. If someone goes ahead and makes those comments anyway, we just want them to be aware that they could be subjecting themselves to legal liability for defamation by one of the affected individuals, not by the board itself.
Okay, thank you. And similar to that, and I want to clarify a little bit regarding board goals versus district goals. And I know there was a few questions regarding merit goals. Mr. Crew, could you provide us information in regards to the legal matters in regards to sharing merit evaluation of the superintendent in public, and what is allowed, what's not allowed, and what we can do in that regards?
Sure. Just the first thing to understand about that is merit goals in a contract for the superintendent or assistant to superintendent are different than board or district goals. It's something different. And the merit goals have to be approved by the board and the superintendent. They're created jointly and also approved by the executive county superintendent of schools in advance. And then they have to be approved again at the end of the year. So it is not, it's not the same as a district goal, and it is not a board goal. It's a separate thing. It's a merit goal developed by the board and the superintendent with the approval of the executive county superintendent. And with respect to the evaluation of the superintendent and any discussion regarding the merit goals and progress towards the merit goals, whether merit goals are met or not, that all of that information, all of that discussion is personnel matter that is private and is not subject to the board discussing it in public, nor can the public obtain the written evaluation document for the superintendent.
Thank you. And I just wanted to further clarify, one of the things that our board has learned this year is the difference between board goals. Yes, in fact, we did not have, or this board did not have board goals in the last year, and we are addressing those today. And definitely the district goals are two separate things. The board goals are for us as the board to have improvement of our body as a whole, correct? And then the district goals is what we hold accountable for the superintendent to execute in the district. And then there's the merit goals who are based on the contract, correct, that Mr. Crude explained. So it's important for us as a board to know those differences. Some of us have gone to trainings to give us specific identifications about the difference between board goals, district goals. So if you haven't attended that, I encourage you to do so. And in the public, if at any time that is confusing, we can certainly provide that differences or education as I'm doing now, but it's certainly out in NJSBA for everyone, New Jersey School Boards Association, for you to learn about it. Okay. Any other board member wishes to make a comment about public comments of any sort? Okay, for those comments that we have not addressed, please know that we will continue to keep them in mind, investigate them, and if not, probably address them later in the agenda. I ask that if you feel we have not addressed them, that you please reach out to us in writing, and especially, to your principals, to your schools, and follow that chain of command. But we certainly are hearing them and understand your comments, and are very grateful to have 12 comments from the public in the board's meeting. Thank you. Okay, trying to find my place. Approval of minutes, I believe, would be in the next. Does the board have a motion to approve the executive and regular meeting minutes for June 16th? I see Ms. Mullen.
Dr. Sainer was moving it.
Dr. Sainer, you move the minutes?
Thank you, Ms. Mullen. Yes, I make a motion that we accept the meeting minutes from both June 16th and July 9th.
Second.
Is there a second? Ms.
second.
Mullen, is there a second? Is there any board discussion?
There was one mistake on the second executive session that meeting ended in AM, not PM, sadly.
Correct. Okay. All right. I see no one with points of discussion. If we may have a voice vote.
Ms. Catano,
Roll call.
Yes.
Mr. Miller,
Yes.
Ms. Mullen,
Yes.
Ms. Nutting,
Yes.
Mr. Robles,
Yes.
Ms. Ruiz,
Yes.
Dr. Sainer,
Yes.
Ms. Viveros,
Yes.
Ms. Grisales.
Yes. Thank you. Communications. The board has received correspondence from Mr. Knowles regarding school reopening and Dr. McLaughlin providing him with a response. We also received an invitation from the county school boards to participate in the joint Morris-Passaic County School Boards Association virtual meeting on August 13th. As the board, please register if you can attend. If you need me to send you details on this meeting, please let me know and I will forward them to you with the registration information. Do any other board members have any full board correspondence that you wish to share? None at this time. Dr. McLaughlin or Ms. Delapoulou, any correspondence, or Mr. Minkowitz on your end? No? Okay, perfect. Okay, administrative reports. Dr. McLaughlin, if you could please commence your administrative report.
Thank you. So good evening to our Dover school community. At this time, I'm aware that there's great interest in the plans to reopen school in September. And since receiving state guidance in the road back document on June 26th, our district steering committee and our school-based pandemic response teams have been hard at work developing plans for the physical reopening of school on September the 2nd. Additionally, we've continued dialogue with our health department, with our school physician, with the Mine Hill schools, and with colleagues from school districts throughout Morris County. I'd like to thank the parents who participated in our parent forum on Monday, and I look forward to sharing thoughts with parents in our school community again on Thursday. Although we have not yet received the state checklist for our required plan, which is concerning, we remain committed to completing our work and releasing final details to our school community by August the 4th. Although there are many details that will be contained in the plan, I'd like to share some preliminary items at this time. The school district commits to spacing of 6 feet between all individuals. Temperature taking and symptom check-in will occur upon arrival each day for both staff and students. The district will observe a shortened day of approximately 4 hours. It's a little bit different, be 8:30 to 12:30 for elementary and 8:15 to 12:30 for high school, with no in-house lunch. Meals will be provided in a grab-and-go style. K-8 students will be divided into 3 cohorts with students attending every 3rd day. And 9th through 12th grade students will attend school twice a week, with Wednesdays being a full virtual day for all students. A rigorous cleaning and disinfection schedule will be followed throughout the district. And our preschool program will move forward. I've received a number of inquiries asking if preschool is still happening, and yes, it is. Among our 23 classes, including many partners in the preschool process, we will move ahead as planned with its own system of hybrid learning, and we will share that in our final plan, and we are hard at work on that as well. We thank our community for their continued partnership through these uncharted waters, and we know that even as we speak, there are changes that are occurring. Just this week, the governor did announce an option for parents, or potential option for parents to choose full virtual learning. But the State Department has not yet issued specific guidance in that regard yet. So we are awaiting that, and that again will be part of our plan. As we are all aware, the physical space of our schools is limited. and we continue to grow as a district. We discussed that a little bit in our board retreat when we last met as a board. And as a first step to address immediate space needs, we have moved all our district offices now to 21 Belmont Street, and that move is now complete. Work is presently underway to renovate spaces in our mobile classrooms for North Dover and spaces at Dover High School, East Dover, and Academy Street School. We anticipate that these 9 new spaces for learning will provide some welcome relief. We know that they're critically needed. And we also know that they're only a first step as we continue to examine the capacity of our schools to appropriately meet students' needs. Space will be one of the issues we address in our district goals, as our administration plans to offer goals to the board at our August meeting. And although it was not originally part of my report, late this afternoon, I do want to share just a nice piece of news about one of our graduates, David Hoyt. We were informed that David Hoyt was selected by the United Soccer Coaches High School Scholar All-America team, which is a really, really big accolade. We congratulate David on this honor. We are proud of all of our students and their achievements. And I did feel that it would be appropriate to mention that at our board meeting. And that completes my report.
Yes, Dr. Sainer.
Dr. McLaughlin, I apologize I just thought of this question, so it's okay if you don't have an answer. If we are doing grab and go for lunch, what about breakfast after the bell? So if you haven't thought of it, please think of.
No, we have thought of it, and most likely it will be combined as we did during our shutdown when we gave the grab and go meals during the period from March 13th to June 30th or June 19th. We combined both breakfast and lunch in a grab and go, and that would continue to be the case. One of the things we have to work out, and it will happen, is that there'll be grab and go sites for the students who are not physically present that day, so that all students will have access to meals 5 days a week.
Thank you.
Ms. Ruiz, and then Ms. Nutting.
Thank you, Ms. Crisales. Ms. Crisales, I have a question in response to Dr. McLaughlin's report. Dr. McLaughlin did share with us that we are working with school physicians and CDC recommendations and under the state's guidelines. And we also shared that we received communication from Mr. Knowles regarding proposals to help us reopen safely for everyone. One of the proposals that I read in Mr. Knowles' emails was universal testing. Would the board or the administration be willing to explain how, if at all, universal testing fits into our reopening plan? And if not, why not?
Sure, I'd be happy to. And as mentioned by Ms. Crisales before, in regard to correspondence, I have responded to Mr. Knowles, and I know that he has felt very strongly about the idea of COVID testing, universal COVID testing, as something that could help our students. So I appreciate Mr. Knowles' contribution, his ideas. We are receptive to ideas, and we gave this real consideration, and we consulted with the individuals who we rely upon in regard to any medical advice, and COVID testing certainly fits into that category as one area to look at. So I did ask our medical director, Dr. Ramirez, if he would provide me with some of the points, because they did not recommend, our school physician did not recommend that we adopt this. I also want to indicate that the CDC guidelines do not support that for schools. The road back map does not suggest it for schools. But I wanted to be more specific in regard to why this particular proposal was not, from the school physician's point of view, one that we should adopt. So if you don't mind, I'm going to consult some notes that I have from Dr. Ramirez. Dr. Ramirez indicated that in order for mass testing proposed by our community to be effective, all testing would have to take place on the same day. That would involve a plan to have staff for testing, an area large enough and a testing schedule long enough to allow for social distancing during that testing, and all families and employees being able and willing to have that testing done on the same day. And doing that over 2 to 3 days in the absence of quarantining will not ensure that all staff and students are free of disease at any single point in time. Just like temperature taking, COVID testing is only a point in time, and it gives us an indicator there, and not as we know, and you know, I've gone through testing myself and have heard all the disclaimers from the doctor saying that there are false positives and false negatives. That in and of itself, this is not a conclusive test. The school physician goes on to say that COVID testing is only assessing infection at the point of time that the sample was collected. So that even with all testing completed in a single day, anyone who was tested 3 days prior to the first day of school could have been infected after testing and be pre-symptomatic within the first days of school and still potentially able to spread infection. Dr. Ramirez goes on to say that healthcare facilities who are relying upon testing to prevent infection in their facilities are testing weekly, which may not be practical or sustainable in a school district of 3,400 students and plus faculty, because you'd have to have everyone participate in that. And while testing is free, is financed through insurance or the CARES Act, that same, and I know that Mr. Knowles did suggest a program, and I'll address that separately. But as far as that, that promise of free testing, that might not continue to be the case with repeated testing situations. Here, I think, is probably the most important point that the school physician makes. Universal testing of the school district would not, as Mr. Knowles stated in one of his emails to me, mean that the schools can open normally in the fall without extensive precautions. So basically, providing COVID testing does not mean that you could bring back 100% of your students. You would still need to provide all those other precautions, masks and 6-foot spacing. Those don't go away, and that's primarily the reason why we have these cohorts, and why every school district so far that I've heard from is doing the same to keep their student enrollment fewer, so that they can provide the spacing, which in all the reading and research that I've done, the number one precaution is spacing. So that is really the driver in terms of having less than 100% of your population in school at one time. So the other piece that the school physician mentions is that with the increased need for testing in other parts of our country, labs are experiencing extended turnaround time for results. And that certainly that type of delay could also be a factor in terms of why this is not recommended. So I wanted to go through that in detail to show that this was not in any way an offhanded rejection of a suggestion. I think it's really, really important for our community to know that we are looking for ideas, that we do welcome suggestions, that we welcome solutions, particularly with something that none of us have faced before. And so I, again, want to extend my appreciation to Mr. Knowles for his advocacy, for his communication to us, and hopefully that provides some level of detail about why we're not embracing that particular idea at this time.
Okay, I believe I saw Ms. Nutting's hand, please.
Thank you, Ms. Rosales. It was just I had 2 questions. For the 4 hours a day going forward for Dr. McLaughlin, are they going to be the same hours that we normally do for school days?
They would be, at the high school, it would be 8:15 to 12:30. And for the other grades, it would be 8:30 to 12:30. I'm not sure that is our typical time, but that's the time that seems to work well for this particular situation. We're also trying to give a half-hour lead time so that when, for example, when students start at 8:30, they can arrive at 8, because we know that the temperature taking and symptom checking can delay having students get to the classroom on time And we also have to make sure that our staff has also gone through the symptom checking before they're in place. So there's a few things to get that day ready.
Okay, and the other question, if parents just want to have the opportunity to do homeschooling virtual, I would say virtual learning at home only and not send their child to school, would that be an option?
Well, as we know, the governor indicated that he would like it to be an option, and I believe said, at least from what I've read so far, that parents would be allowed to have that option. I'm not quite sure, because sometimes when you get the details, things shift a little in interpretation, and we haven't gotten the details yet on that. Of course, we don't and we would need the governor's, I guess, ability to give us that option, because previous to this, we had been told that we had to have a plan for students to be physically present, which we would have imagined, absent a medical condition, would have meant all students. So I guess this, this is a step in that direction. But the information is new. We need to first see the detailed guidance from the governor. And I am going to tell you very honestly, this is a little stressful, because we're at July 21st. We have an August 4th deadline to release this to our community. We have not yet received a checklist from a promised checklist from the Department of Ed, which our plan must meet. And we also haven't received the details of this newest announcement about virtual only learning. And it's not that we're opposed to it in any way, but we have to have a plan. In a way, it's a fourth cohort. We have 3 cohorts already that we're planning for our elementary students. A virtual only will be a 4th. So again, it's not that in any way that we're against it or that we won't do it, but it requires planning. And so we are trying to stay agile and ready to be flexible and to meet some of the changing options. But I don't have a final answer on how that would work yet.
I wonder if yoga will help in becoming more agile. I saw Dr. Sainer and then Ms. Catano, please.
I just wanted to comment that Mr. Robles and I attended the Monday morning parent forum. It was really good to, Dr. McLaughlin was very agile and flexible in explaining the options to parents. And obviously our community has a lot of concerns. I'm a parent. I have concerns about my kids going back to school. As a board member, I have concerns about our plan moving forward for our 3,400 students and our staff members. And as a teacher, I have concerns about going back to school myself. And so I just appreciated Dr. McLaughlin's calm and his ability to answer people's questions, and also the public's understanding that this is a very fluid situation that literally changes by the hour. Dr. McLaughlin hinted in that session that it would be likely that he'd heard a rumor. I think you said that you'd heard a rumor that the governor would allow parents to keep their kids at home. And I think it was an hour later that I got the news alert that that was happening. So I just appreciate your flexibility and your willingness to communicate with the community as best that you can, so that all of us that are experiencing these nerves about going back to school can get answers to our questions.
Ms. Catano.
Thank you. I'm sorry, I didn't send this question in advance, so if you don't have the answer, it's fine. For those parents that, let's say that the option of virtual learning won't be available for them, I know, and I've been hearing parents saying that they may buy curriculum for their kids. How will that work in conjunction with the district?
Well, I'm not quite sure how, and it would depend on how that inquiry was phrased. I did receive, for example, one parent who indicated to me this week that they would like to homeschool their child. I usually explore that with a parent, because sometimes homeschooling, home instruction, there are terms that there are legal boundaries to those terms, but sometimes they're used interchangeably. And I want to make sure that I understand a parent when they're asking what their option is. Any parent can choose to homeschool their child, and we as a school district do not have to provide that parent with that authority. All they have to do is notify us of that. Of course, we want to educate children, and we would much rather have a child with us, but we respect a parent's wishes if they choose to homeschool a child. But if a parent does choose to homeschool a child, they have total autonomy in that regard, and typically there's no relationship anymore within the district, although the parent's always obviously free to re-enroll their child as long as they continue to live in the community.
Great. So there is a clear I think we have to be clear with the community that homeschooling is you are not enrolling your child in public school system, and now you as a parent are responsible to buy curriculum to access homeschooling separately from the district. There's home instruction, which happens usually right when there's
And a
temporary
medical need, right?
medical
Yep.
situations, and then there's virtual learning. So those are three very different
All different, yes.
that
yes.
should not be interchanged. So Dr. McLaughlin, just to clarify for the board and the public, so you're saying that you have developed a plan that you're going to hopefully present on August 4th without a checklist of what is needed to be in that plan. Is that accurate?
We can't finalize our plan until we get that checklist.
Right. So you've been developing it without that guidance.
We are, and we have lots of work to do. So it's okay. We're, it's still productive, and it's not that we can't continue to develop our plan. But ultimately, when that plan is ready to release to our community and share with the board as a final plan, although I don't really think anything is truly final, but as our most final plan possible 4 weeks before the beginning of school, we have to cross-reference it against that checklist because if we don't meet the checklist, we're not meeting state requirements. And although the road back is a comprehensive document of 104 pages and has a lot of information in it, we know that the checklist may have its own information that's not in the 104 pages. There's already been some changes. For example, contact tracing is a clarification from the original 104-page document that came out afterwards as a separate memo from the Department of Ed. So, there are likely to be some differences in the checklist than what we think the guidance is right now.
And one more question that I have not forwarded to you to help you prepare. I apologize for that, but I know it's been a discussion informally, I think, wondering what plans, what action steps you have in mind in regards to if a parent requests and we get the authorization from the education department or from the governor that parents can choose the virtual education. What plans do you have if it's a parent who doesn't have internet but doesn't want to send their kids home? And how are we going to meet those needs of those students who don't have that? Or if you don't have the answer, what are the action steps that you're thinking of
I
taking?
don't have the answer. Obviously, it's a big issue, and I think actually, Ms. Dallapaloo is going to share in her report what we've done in terms of devices. But we know that it's a challenge for our school district in terms of connectivity, and we have looked at some options. None of them are ideal, but some options would provide some relief. And of course, one of the pieces, and I always hate bringing it up, but it is any option will be an expensive option. However, here's potentially some good news, and it's more than a rumor because we actually heard it officially today at the roundtable meeting that districts will be receiving notice of a digital divide allocation. So the state, and I have no idea of what type of allocation this would be, but potentially because it's targeted towards digital learning, that might provide us with some added resources to look at this. I mean, in terms of the CARES Act, which we've mentioned a few times, we've exhausted the CARES Act, and I can address two issues that came up in the public comment that are appropriate to address right now. One dealt with Tiger Wrap. Will it be available for middle school students? No, because we contracted with Rutgers Behavioral Health, And that's actually one of the areas that we use CARES funding for, because we know that the social emotional health of our students, although it's always a concern and always an area that we wanted to attend to, it's particularly peaked during this time of COVID. So we are planning to have a full-time mental health clinician and the services of Rutgers Behavioral at our middle school. And we have also budgeted part of the CARES Act for a part-time itinerant clinician for our elementary schools. So that's a big step forward. They would work in partnership with our counseling department and with Tiger Wrap, all which are designed to support students. So I want to mention that at this point as well. The other area that came up in public comment that kind of fits, it certainly does fit in with reopening. There was a question about the marching band and athletics and why athletics were on the agenda. The only decision about athletics at this point is that we provided the phase 1 early workout camps, which are very tightly controlled, small groups of students working without equipment, not in any kind of type of competition. And that phase 1 was good because it had a lot of the protocols that we have to use in schools, and it gave us in a way, a type of small pilot to see how that worked. So for example, the coaches have to be checked before they can begin. And then the students have to be checked, and the social distancing has to be there. So the only thing that's on the agenda for tonight are those who are involved in that small period of phase 1. That doesn't mean that there has been no decision made about whether we're going ahead with athletics, and no decision made about going ahead with marching band. And I'm not saying that they're linked together, although, we have to make decisions about both. And we're continuing to look at all those options. And Ms. Gaynor-Matanti has been really diligent about exploring options and what we can do in terms of marching band. One thing I can say, since I mentioned her name, is that we are dedicated to providing all our array of subject areas, including music, including art, including phys ed, although we will have to adapt those activities for when students are in school. So we are not leaving, I know that's come up a couple of times with questions. We're not leaving any part of our curriculum out, although we will be adapting curriculum to meet this particular circumstance.
Thank you for those very thorough answers. I think we needed to hear it, and I think our community, right? There's a lot of anxiety with everything. As Dr. Sainer mentioned, parent board members, we need to think about all our kids. So I'm appreciative of that. If there are no further questions for Dr. McLaughlin for his report, I will go, Ms. Dalapaloo, if you could provide us with your report, please.
Sure, absolutely. And that was a great segue, Dr. McLaughlin, so I appreciate that. I'm going to pick up and continue providing the board information about curriculum writing. Our curriculum writing teams are quickly underway, beginning their units in their new courses. To date, all the writers are using the new Atlas system and have concluded one unit within each of their courses. Supervisors are having weekly check-in meetings with their staff to review these units and provide direct feedback and support the writers in the process. We have embraced the Understanding by Design curricular framework and are developing units to reflect this type of planning. We look forward to reviewing this curriculum with the curriculum committee of the board upon completion in September. For approval on the agenda tonight is a lease purchase agreement for Apple Technologies for the procurement of 1,400 iPads. This purchase is a major part of our reopening plan and addresses many district needs in providing the continuity of learning for our students. In conjunction with the elementary students receiving these iPads, we are also working to configure our established technologies to outfit secondary students with laptop devices for September. Although the conditions of COVID-19 may not be the most ideal way to roll out a district one-to-one, we're committed to providing technologies that will help keep our students connected as we move into the unknowns of school reopening in September. To help support both teachers and students through this transition, You will also see for your approval tonight a new job description entitled Technology Integration Specialist. This is a CARES-funded position which will work directly with teachers and students to develop and enhance their skill levels in integrating and utilizing technology within the classroom. In addition, this professional will provide support to parents by way of video tutorials and trainings to also assist them with regard to technology equipment and products that their child may be using. This job description approval is the beginning step to developing a more robust technology team to better serve the district in a variety of ways. And that concludes my report.
Perfect. Do any board members have any questions? Ms. Delapoulou, can I put you on the spot? And obviously, if you can't answer, I apologize for that. But one of the public questions was really about curriculum and, you know, how to include new things, or specifically, right, we're talking about civics, gender, race. What is that process? Can you give us a general description on how curriculum is developed, or how you can add new things to it?
Well, I can tell you that the state did release new guidelines in specific to the LGBTQ T population, and ensuring that curriculum does reference achievements along with individuals with disabilities as well. That was a new initiative that came out. As you know, we're in the process of transitioning curriculum to Atlas, so that's going to be a multi-year process. As we're doing that work, we would be revising curriculum. So we actually are in a good point right now to start to look at how are we representing different groups in our curriculum? What is the work that we need to do to maybe expand the curriculum to better meet the needs of our students? The Department of Ed also released new standards. So we also have timelines to revise curriculum in order to meet those new standards. So all the pieces are coming together for us to take an in-depth look curriculum-wise. So the person's question was very spot on. So we are at the beginning stages of that work.
Thank you. Mr. Minkowitz, would you like to provide us with your administrative report, please? Mr. Minkowitz, you are muted. You may start again, please.
There we go. Is it okay if I review the finance items? I can do that. You might get tired of hearing me talk tonight after all those public comments and all these finance items, but
it's okay. The public gets a rest from my annoying voice.
Good. Item number 1, the board acknowledges receipt of the certification from the business administrator that no line item account has encumbrances or expenditures which exceed the line item appropriation, and that sufficient funds are available to meet the Board of Ed's financial obligations for the remainder of the year. Number 2, we gratefully accept contributions to the district scholarship account as listed. Number 3, we approve the June 30th payment of bills and July 21st payment of bills. Number 4, we approve the attached budget line transfers for the month of May. Number 5, we accept the extra services report for June 15th and June 30th, and the payroll registers for the month of June. Number 6, we approve the cafeteria report for April and May. Number 7, approves the posting of results for lead testing. Number 8, authorizes the submission of toilet room facilities for kindergarten classrooms waiver form to the Morris County Department of Ed. Number 9, approves the contract with Department of Children and Families for the Tiger Rat program. Number 10, approves the submission of waivers of facilities efficiency standard in accordance with NJC 6A for 2021 preschool classrooms located at Head Start, Little Promises, and Randolph YMCA. Number 11, approves the 2021 contracts with the preschool providers and grantees listed. Number 12, Ms. Delapoulou already discussed. It's for approval of the master lease purchase for the Apple devices. Numbers 13 through 17. They are the approval of 5 projects for the architects. And the first 2 projects are being postponed due to the impending cuts in state aid. So the first 2 items that are up for approval, we can approve them, but we're going to postpone them. They are the classroom HVAC upgrades at Eastville Elementary School and the partial roof replacement at Dover High School. Then the following 3 projects we are completing. Classroom conversions at Dover High School, media center renovations at North Dover Elementary School, and media center renovations at Academy Street Elementary School. Number 18 approves entering into an agreement with Valley Health Systems to provide drug and alcohol testing for bus drivers. Number 19 approves that the Dover Board of Ed intends to renew, award, or permit to expire the following contracts. And then there are a number of contracts listed, continuing its membership of the Morris County Cooperative Pricing Council. Number 21 approves entering into a shared service agreement with Educational Services Commission to supply personnel and/or service contractors and bidding purchasing services. Number 22 approves acceptance of the district's worker compensation procedure and treatment facilities as indicated. Number 23, the board approves the direct deposit of net pay for school district employees. That's something we do every year. Number 24, we approve the following nutrition program meal prices for the 2021 school year. There are no changes in prices for lunch, breakfast, milk, and juice for the elementary, middle, and high schools for next year. Number 25, approves submitting the Elementary and Secondary Education Act applications for fiscal 2021 and accept the grant award of these funds. Number 26, approves submitting the IDEA application for 2021 and accept the grant award of those funds. Number 27, approves the submission of the ELISA's Law Compliance and School Securities Grant application. Number 28, approve continuing to provide occasional transportation services for athletic runs and field trips at a rate of $65 per hour. And there are several schools listed that if we have the opportunity to provide these services for them, we will. Number 29 approves the 2021 procurement procedures for child nutrition. And number 30 approves an agreement with the Educational Service Commission of Morris County for professional non-public services for the 2021 school year. I know that was a lot, but it's a big finance agenda.
Ms. Chrysales, just if I may, a point of order, perhaps a parliamentary inquiry.
Go ahead, Ms. Ruiz, what?
We were on section 8 of our agenda, and that was the administrative report. And just so we all can follow along, Mr. Mickowitz completed his report by going to section, the finance
section,
which is 14 of our agenda. So if anybody wasn't following along, if you just go to section 14, that's where we are.
Perfect. Thank you for that clarification.
Thank you.
Are there any board members that have questions for the business administrator's report at this time? Dr. Sainer?
I have questions, but should we wait until we get to item 14 or?
Yeah, I mean,
okay.
Mr. Kruger, okay. Yes, definitely for the voting, we would have to at that part. If there was any general ones, is what I'm inquiring about. Okay, perfect. Thank you, Mr. Okay, we're going to approving administrative approvals. Is there a motion to affirm that Dr. McLaughlin has provided this board with reports regarding HIV incidents at the June 16th meeting involving case number DMS number 13 as unconfirmed? This report includes information on investigations, recommendations, consequences, and/or measures taken relating to HIV.
So moved.
Ms. Mullen
Second.
moves the motion and Ms. Catano second the motion to resolve that this board votes to affirm Dr. McLaughlin's recommendation. Any board members have any discussion points? I see none. Mr. Minkowitz, may the board have a roll call, please?
Ms. Catano,
Yes.
Mr. Miller,
Yes.
Ms. Mullen,
Yes.
Ms. Nutting,
Yes.
Mr. Robles,
Yes.
Ms. Ruiz,
Yes.
Dr. Sainer,
Yes.
Ms. Viveros,
Yes.
Ms. Grisales.
Yes. Motion carries, correct?
Yes.
Is there a motion from the board on resolutions outlined under administrative approvals, item B, 1 through 3?
Ms. Grisales, I move that we approve the following resolutions, items 1 and 2 under B.
Thank you. Is there a second?
A second.
Perfect. Yes, Dr. Sainer?
I just had a question about what are the unofficial 2008 and 2009 staff attendance records, and why are we destroying them?
They are beyond the date where we are required to keep them, and it was a request by the office personnel to destroy them.
Any other points of or comments? Mr. Minkowitz, will the board have a roll call, please?
Ms. Catano,
Yes.
Mr. Miller,
Yes.
Ms. Mullen,
Yes.
Ms. Nutting,
Yes.
Mr. Robles,
Yes.
Ms. Ruiz,
Yes.
Dr. Sainer,
Yes.
Ms. Viveros,
Yes.
Ms. Grisales.
Yes. Ms. Mullen, may you lead this agenda item for the board, please?
Yes. Okay. Yes, before I move the motion, it'll be for 1 to 34, but I thought I would highlight some of the areas before I move the motion. 3 job descriptions, and I'm excited about the technology integration specialist, which is an educational background person who will be hands-on with assistive technology and helping teachers and staff. And the other is the business office administration, which we have deemed we need more help. And 9 positions have been hired for September, 3 of which are special ed, which is very exciting. And another curriculum writer for the new guide, Math and Toys and Games, which is exciting too. And then we're going to be voting to attest to the completion of the merit goals, and they were decided on by the board with the superintendent in areas we felt very strongly as a board when we developed them. And they're talking about getting parents, portal access, updating our policies, and character programs in schools, which we talked about and we needed, and by literacy instruction, preschool education for our assistant superintendent, and coordinating all of that, and working closely with Mine Hill in moving forward in that relationship, and using technology for learning in the Google Apple for education, getting that throughout the district, all our technology updated, which has been a journey and very exciting. And we keep going we have we have our fall coaches, as we talked about, and we have new supervisor of guidance, a new supervisor of bilingual ESL world that we'll be moving a motion on. And we have summer medical screeners that we've already started this process, so that'll be a good moving forward, as well as establishing daily substitute pay rates. So I move that the board approve the following personnel resolutions for the 2021 school year as listed, 1 through 34, and new personnel employment appointments are contingent upon the required state and federal criminal history background checks in accordance with NJSA Chapter 116, PI 1986, and completion of required employee paperwork, including pre-employment verification.
Perfect.
Sue.
Thank you, Ms. Mullen.
Just one quick question. My agenda has items 1 through 35.
Correct.
Okay, 1 through 35. Yes, thank you.
Mr. Krug.
It was
Aye.
the last addition on today.
Correct. So 1
Sorry.
through 35, and I see Ms. Catano
Thank
is
you.
seconding it. Correct?
I just have a question before we
So
proceed.
hold on a second. Before we
Oh.
have discussion, I need a second for that
Okay.
motion on the table. Ms. Viveros is going to second it. And Ms. Catano, you have the floor.
Under personnel, I see that we, about the job description for the lead nurse, are we looking to promote one of our talents? Since I see that one of the qualifications is to hold a position as a school nurse within the Dover Public Schools.
Yes, it's a stipended position, and it is for one of our nurses to serve in a coordinating capacity. I directly supervise the nurses, but not being a health professional, I do rely on someone who can assist me in terms of coordinating what the nurses need and being able to communicate directly with our school physician and the health department. So this, I think, will go a long way for not a lot of economy. And it is, to answer your question, yes, designed for one of our 4 nurses. We have 4 nurses in the district.
And being that, do we have a succession plan in place?
I'm not quite sure.
So being that we are promoting someone that is already as a nurse, do we as a district, do we have a succession plan in place? So
I see what you're saying. No, because the person is not leaving their position. They're really just serving as, I guess you could say, first among equals. They're still in their full nursing position, so they're not vacating. This is just a stipend that we're attaching for basically the extra work that's involved in coordination.
It's actually number 8 under personnel. It's number 8.
So, and stipend, can you describe a little bit what that means?
Sure. So
please.
some positions have stipends attached to them where individuals do coordination activities that go beyond their immediate job description. And so we provide some extra compensation to them because they are working typically beyond their normal hours to be able to do that, and beyond what we would normally ask a staff member in that position to do. I'm trying to think quickly on my feet about another stipend position I could compare it to, but we have a number of them in the district.
Thank you, Dr. McLaughlin. Ms. Ruiz?
Thank you, Ms. Crisales. Might our board explain a little more about what a merit goal is, when the merit goals were set, how merit pay is determined, and how common or rare merit goals are among superintendents in our state? And specifically with regard to the quantitative goal number 3 under point 14, it reads, the superintendent shall facilitate a process that provides parents with the ability to both access and respond to communications from the school in a digital fashion. Some in our community don't know yet or are learning still how to use Honeywell, how to use email and other forms of digital communication. And some families just simply don't have access yet to internet at home or to tablets or smartphones. Or because of the pandemic, aren't able to keep up with the payments to maintain their telephone and their internet access. And of course, our district has, to my knowledge, not made use of free platforms such as WhatsApp, right? We communicate via Honeywell, email, call. So given the realities of our community and given the wording of this goal, can we share more details about what it is and what it entails so we can be sure of, if and how it was met?
So that's a two-part question. Mr. Crute, do you want to address the first piece about what merit goals are?
Sure, yes, let me talk about the first piece. So merit goals are permitted by, specifically by school law in the state of New Jersey. And there can be up to 5 merit goals. There's a few that are what are called quantitative and a few that are qualitative merit goals. And the merit goals are set at the beginning of the school year, prior to the school year or early in the school year by the superintendent in conjunction with the board. So it's not the superintendent and the board collaborate basically on developing the goals. And as I think I said earlier, they then have to be submitted to the executive county superintendent of schools for approval. And then at the end of the year, the board reviews the merit goals for the year and determines in the first instance whether the board feels that the merit goals have been met. And then after that resolution is passed, they need to be submitted back to the executive county superintendent, who has to give the final okay on the approval of the merit goals. And one part of the question was how common are they? And the answer is very common. Most superintendents, assistant superintendents, and business administrators as well, many of them have, most, if not, I would say at least many in each category, have merit goals in their contracts, and it's very common.
Okay. Now I can address the second part of the question, but before I do, I just want to kind of issue a disclaimer. This is a personnel item, and typically we don't get into the nitty-gritty of personnel items. Those are reserved for executive session. I don't mind talking about it because it pertains to me, and in this instance, I think it's a very appropriate question for me to answer, but I just don't want to in any way, I'll just put the disclaimer out there that wouldn't mean that in the future, if other employees or, other things of a personnel nature were on the agenda, that they should be discussion items. But if Ms. Grisales, if you don't mind, I'll address that part of the question.
I appreciate providing the disclaimer. I was gonna jump in there. I think it's important that we don't set the precedent that this is something that we do. I think given the situation of our financial situation in the district, of the health and obviously situation and the access and equity of our district or lack of, I appreciate you putting yourself out there and providing this explanation.
Sure. So as Ms. Ruiz mentioned, parent access is important, and it's a big area for our district in many, many different ways, some of which she mentioned and areas that even go beyond that. This particular goal was set up to create access through our portal. So we have two chief portals that were available but not utilized before this school year in a inclusive way throughout the district, and that was for our Genesis portal, which is our student data system, inclusive of report cards and grades, so that parents could access that portal through technology, whether it be a smartphone, whether it be a computer device. And the other portal that's involved in that is that we hadn't utilized really at all was our frontline portal for special education, so that you can have basically a digital area to go in and to access your children's IEPs, progress reports. Actually, there's a pretty big capacity there, but one that we hadn't utilized at all. And of course, that's not just a matter of just setting it up, but it's also a matter of providing guidance to parents who are first-time users. So there were expectations that were set up in regard to that, with the highest expectation being 60% of district families being set up and accessing the portal. I know 60% may not sound high, but actually in a very first year, it's a good sign of progress, and we actually exceeded that. We hit 77.69%, which is great, especially considering all the challenges to technology that Ms. Ruiz mentioned. So again, we're not satisfied with 77%, actually almost 78%, but it's a great start in a first year. Again, access, this is a piece of access, and it's a beginning. The other piece that was involved in here, although not presented in a quantifiable way, was starting our online registration process, which we have. But online registration in general is a challenging process. Online registration is even more challenging. But and our thought process going forward isn't that we would be exclusively online, but that it would provide another option for parents registering their children. And that was embedded in the goal to begin July 1st, set up to begin July 1st, 2020. So that's what made up this part of the goal. Again, it wasn't intended to be a 100% solution to access. We do know that many of our parents have challenges that we need to support them with in terms of access. And there's some things that we can do when we're back in person, which I think will be great in terms of providing hands-on and accessible computers that parents can come and use for school-based items and things that we can assist with, whether that's setting up email or setting up Honeywell accounts. One of the things that when we begin physical registration again, that we plan to have is a computer right in our registration office that parents can go on and register right away for Honeywell, but also let them know that it's not a one-time offer, that they're free to come back, whether it's to Belmont Avenue or to any of our schools, and to have access for parents to be able to go on and to change their settings, or even to just check if they don't have technology at home. That's one of the ways that we can do it. Again, none of these solutions are one size fits all or solve all the issues that were just presented, but they're pieces of it, and we're committed to continue working on that.
Thank you, Dr. McLaughlin. Are there any?
Sorry, one of those questions missed. How is merit pay determined? Is it a percentage? How does that work?
So, Mr. Crew?
Yeah, it's a percentage, and there's a certain percentage assigned to each separate category, the quantitative and the qualitative goals. And I think the exact figure, it basically adds up to 15%, which is, but I think technically, I think it's like 14.99% that the 5 goals can add up to.
Thank you. Are there any other board comments or topics? We had a motion moved and a second. Mr. Minkowitz, you have that information. I see you, Dr. Sino, 1 second. You have the motion information, Mr. Minkowitz?
You're
Perfect.
muted, Mr. Minkowitz.
Yes, I do. Thank you.
Perfect. Dr. Sino, you had one more? Okay, all right. May Mr. Minkowitz, may the board have a roll call, please, on items 1 through 35 of personnel. Thank you, Ms. Mullen.
Ms. Catano,
Yes.
Mr. Miller,
Yes.
Ms. Mullen,
Yes.
Ms. Nutting,
Yes.
Ms. Robles,
Yes.
Mr. Robles. Sorry about that. Ms. Ruiz,
Yes.
Dr. Sainer,
Yes.
Ms. Viveros,
Yes.
Ms. Grisales.
Yes. Ms. Catano, would you please provide this board with an update on the negotiations committee?
Yes. We met on June 24th with the DEA and exchanged proposals. And on July 6th, the administration and the negotiations committee met to review the proposal that we received, part of it. And we will continue to review that on another meeting. On July 16th, we had a negotiation section with the DEA. And we will continue with another section on August the 13th. That will conclude my report.
Excuse me, I think there's actually one scheduled on July 30th, our next session.
Correct.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, July 30th.
Perfect. Thank you. Good catch, Mr. Cruz.
Thank you.
Okay. Ms. Nutting, would you please provide us with an update on this committee, the curriculum, co-curriculum, please?
Okay, so we met on the 14th, which was not too long ago. And for our meeting, we talked about Atlas is an online planning tool that will contain the district's curricula. All new curricula will be added to the Atlas moving forward. Atlas allows the curricula to be a living document as teachers add new lessons and activities and activities. The transition is going well. The communication between the teachers and the supervisor is going well also. The technology update that we talked about is that the iPads are being purchased so that K through 6 students will have one. As of now, students in grades 7 through 12, can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay.
Yes.
Will have access to the district laptops. Students will be able to bring their devices home to enhance their virtual instruction. The district is hiring a technology integration specialist. The specialist will provide professional development for teachers in the area of using technology to enhance education. And the TIS, I'll just abbreviate it, will also work with the students to support their transition for also. And as Governor Murphy that requires, the athletic department has developed a plan for athletic practice. This includes students working in small groups called pods, temperature checks upon arrival, regular bathroom and equipment cleaning, and social distancing for all fall sports practices. Okay, and I would like to make a motion on the board approve the following numbers 1 through 10.
Thank you for the motion, Ms. Nutting, and Mr. Robles seconded the motion. Are there any board members discussion? I see Dr. Sainer. Did I see anyone else? Okay, Dr. Sainer, you have the floor.
I had a question in regards to item number 2, the creation of the multiply disabled class at DMS. Is there any savings for the district in providing this education in-house?
I think that there could be. It's not a savings in that sometimes when a district creates a program, they bring students back from an out-of-district program. What I would say is that what we are working to do is to have options so that our students don't need to leave us. When we examine this particular group of students and their needs and the size of our groupings and who was mixed together, we really felt that this multiply disabled class was appropriate. And I think what it does is that certainly at a middle school level, we're not then saying to students, we need you to travel, to a private school or to another public school district. We send a lot of students to other public schools, which, are programs then we know that if we have the space and the commitment, we can run ourselves. And that's what we are committed to doing. So last year we started a full day preschool special ed program for the first time. This year, this is the second program that the board has been asked to approve. The first was a kindergarten autism program, and now the multiply disabled program. So we're starting to have a variety of offerings. And I know I keep saying this, so I apologize. It's only the beginning. We need to have an array of program offerings from K to 12 so that our students not only can remain in district, but can get a quality program in district. We certainly want to do this in a way that allows us to develop the programs along the lines that we should and meet our students' needs right here in Dover.
Thank you.
Excellent. Great news. Great news. Are there any other board member comments before we move on to voting? Okay, Mr. Minkowitz, may the board have a roll call, please?
Ms. Catano,
Yes.
Mr. Miller,
Yes.
Ms. Mullen,
Yes.
Ms. Nutting,
Yes.
Mr. Robles,
Yes.
Ms. Ruiz,
Yes.
Dr. Sainer,
Yes.
Ms. Viveros,
Yes.
Ms. Grisales.
Yes, yes, yes. Excellent. Ms. Viveros, would you please provide this board with an update on the policy committee? Yes.
We have community relations first, I think.
Did I skip one? I did. Sorry, Mr. Miller. Please provide us with your update. I apologize for that.
Well, I was going to say that, you'll be happy that I don't have a 3-page report this time.
Yes. No.
No.
I'm glad to hear all of the community involvement. I mean, this is one of the things that our board has really worked on. So I welcome your 3 pages.
Okay. So I'll be short tonight. We do have a community relations meeting scheduled for August 5th at 5:30, as we weren't able to meet prior to this one. But I did attend a Connecting Dover meeting on 7/15, which they continued their program focused on COVID offerings. And there were a number of individuals that presented. The Center for Empowerment of the Latino Woman was presented as far as how they are workforce focused to help individuals find jobs, which was great. Mayor Carolyn Blackman, Dover Mayor Carolyn Blackman gave a presentation on COVID-19 and the statistics in the town of Dover and how the percentage of positives have gone way down since a high in April. And, continue to put the message out there that we have to work together to slow the spread of COVID-19. And then the Housing Partnership also did presentation, and they offer rental counseling, especially during this time when folks are unemployed and are having trouble making ends meet. So it's a very, very informative and great collaboration on this Connecting Dover program. So it's really great to be able to participate, and actually I'm able to participate more virtually than I was in person because it becomes harder to do that. So that is my report for tonight.
Thank you so much, Mr. Miller. If I may just add, the Housing Authority, I had posed a question in the past in my capacity as a therapist, but I think it's very useful for us to know here. They really will also help those who do not have a migration status to make a connection with resources or anything of that sort when they can't pay their rent, when they're struggling with those situations. So if the district knows and becomes aware, or the community of those, please send them to those very supportive resources. Additionally, the Empower, Mr. Miller, I don't know the name because it's new, but the Empowerment of the Latino Woman Workforce, right? Did I get that right?
Well, that's the name of it, but then they had talked about being workforce focused and people finding jobs.
Perfect. And that's through Morris County Hispanic Affairs, correct? Organization for Hispanic Affairs. Yeah. So that's another great resource for our community. So thank you for sharing that. Okay, so now, Ms. Viveros, if you could provide us with an update on the committee that you chair for policy.
Okay, the policy committee met on July 14th via Google Meet. And we will start with item number 1, which is a first reading, policy 1649. It's Federal Families First Coronavirus Response Act. This is a brand new policy. The provisions of the FFCRA shall apply from April 1st, 2020 through December 31st, 2020. Families First Coronavirus Response Act was recently approved by the United States Congress and signed by the President of the United States. The FFCRA has 2 sections that impact private employers with fewer than 500 employees in all public schools. Item A, the Emergency Family and Medical Leave Expansion Act, EFMLEA, This is the Division C of the FFCRA, and it amends the Federal Medical and Family Leave Act to permit an employee who is unable to work or telework due to a need to care for their son or daughter under 18 years old if their school or place of care has been closed, or if the child care provider of the son or daughter is unavailable due to a public health emergency. To use federal medical and family leave, a public health emergency is an emergency with respect to COVID-19 as declared by federal, state, or local authority. The first 10 days of such leave may be, but not required to be, paid leave provided by the employer. The Board of Education is looking to add to this statement to read as the Board of Education will allow 10-month employees to use their sick days for the first 10 days of their leave. Item B, the Emergency Paid Sick Leave Act, EPSLA. The EPSLA is Division E of the FFCRA and requires the employer to provide paid sick time to the extent the employee is unable to work or telework due to the employee being subject to a government-ordered quarantine advised by a healthcare provider to self-quarantine, experiencing symptoms of COVID-19 and is seeking a medical diagnosis. Caring for an individual has been ordered to quarantine or has been advised to quarantine, or caring for their son or daughter if the school or child care provider has been closed. The EPSLA provides up to 80 hours of paid time for a full-time employee and prorated time for a part-time employee based on a 2-week work period. The next policy is 5110, welcoming policy. Policy name reading, access to education, student privacy, and immigration enforcement. This one's very lengthy, so I apologize in advance. Following discussions in committee last year, there were multiple changes to the welcoming schools policy as written. However, the revisions ensure the content and protections are unchanged. These revisions were made by Mr. Crute with the guidance from Jennifer Calley, former director of the New Jersey Alliance for Immigrant Justice, who authored the original policy. According to Mr. Crute, she had no specific objections to our changes. The first paragraph has been changed to read, the Board of Education recognizes that all children have the right to attend school pursuant to state law without regard to their citizenship or immigration status. The Board of Education also recognizes that public schools may not inquire about the immigration status of parents or students or deny enrollment based on citizenship status, except in accordance with NJSC 6A:22-3.3 B1. The next paragraph that's been changed, information collection. Item 1 has been changed to read, no school employee shall inquire into a student's or their caregiver's immigration status or require any information that can expose their immigration status during enrollment and at any other time during the school year. Item 2 has been changed to read, students shall be enrolled in the district pursuant to policy 5111 and relevant New Jersey statutes and regulations. Pursuant to NJSC 6A:22-3.4 the district shall not condition enrollment on the receipt of information or documents protected from disclosure by law or pertaining to the criteria that are not a legitimate basis for determining eligibility to attend school, including but not limited to income tax returns, documents or information related to citizenship or immigration visa status, documentation or information relating to compliance with local housing ordinance or conditions of tenancy and social security numbers. School employees shall minimize the risk that any request for supporting documentation will expose the immigration status of the student or give their caregiver or hinder their access to education. Thus, A, to verify age, schools will not require birth certificate or other documentation that exposes a student's place of birth, but instead permit other proof of the student's identity, such as a religious, hospital, or physician's certificate showing date of birth, an entry in a family Bible, an adoption record, or an affidavit from a parent. B, to verify immunization, school explained to students and caregivers that the schools must allow, pursuant to state law, a 30-day grace period for out-of-state or out-of-country students to obtain immunization documentations and assist students who lack a fixed, regular, and adequate residence, including those living in shelters, temporary housing, or with their relatives or friends because their family lacks a regular or permanent residence of its own, to obtain required immunization or medical records. Enrollment in the district may not be denied based on the absence of a student's medical information. However, actual attendance may be deferred until the student complies with the student immunization rules at NJSC 8:57-4.1. Item number 3, to verify residency, the district shall accept a combination of forms of documentation from persons attempting to demonstrate a student's eligibility for enrollment in accordance with NJAC 6A:22-3.4. The district shall consider the totality of information and documentation offered by an applicant and shall not deny enrollment based on failure to provide a particular form or subset of documents without regards to other evidence presented. For example, the district will not require driver's license, but will consider other documents such as a telephone or utility bill, mortgage or lease document, caregiver affidavit, rent payment receipts, a copy of a money order made for payment of rent, property tax receipts, pay stubs, a letter from a caregiver's employment that is written on company letterhead, or correspondence from a government agency. Item number 4, all schools in the district will ensure that their director information, i.e. information considered to be non-private under the Family Education Right and Privacy Act, is maintained in accordance with policy 8330 and 8335 and NJAC 6A:32-7, and that it does not contain any information that could facilitate immigration enforcement, such as a student's home address or place of birth, without their caregiver's consent. Access to school sites. We have added an additional item in item B, reading as, if the officer has a warrant or order, ask to make a copy for the school's record and share it with the superintendent or other designated administrators before acting on it. Item number 4, we have added in this sentence after the paragraph, the school principal shall avoid escalating the situation. However, to the extent possible, the principal shall indicate to the agents that the school has not consented to the enforcement action on its property, document the agent's directives and actions, accompany the agent when possible, and request that the agent avoids disrupting school operations or placing students or staff at risk or harm. The principal shall also remind the student being interviewed by the agent that the student has a right to remain silent in response to questions posted by the agents. Access to school records, item number 1. We have amended the last sentence to read, information about students will not be shared unless affirmatively required by the state or federal law. The word state has been added to this sentence. Also, we add an additional sentence at the end of item number 1 to read, requests for students' records will be handled in accordance with policy 8330 and 8335 and NJAC 6A:32-7. Within this document, we are also having added a statement in case ICE does come into our school and there is an issue that the administration team has a communication plan / process to provide the family with resources and support to assist them. I move on to item number 2, which is a second reading. First reading occurred on June 16th meeting. Policy 5514, student use of vehicles on school grounds. Policy 5516, use of personal electronic devices, electronic communication and recording devices, and policy 5561, use of physical restraint and seclusion techniques for students with disabilities. We have revisions to this policy. The following has been removed. A student is not restrained in the prone position unless the student's primary care physician authorizes in writing the use of this restraint technique. In item number 3, we added wording to the paragraph which reads, the parent and case manager, CST, of a student is immediately notified when physical restraint is used on the student. This notification may be by telephone or electronic communication. A post-incident written notification report of the incident of physical restraint shall be provided to the parent and case manager / CST within 48 hours of the occurrence of the incident. Changes were made to the second to the last paragraph to read as, the superintendent or designee shall annually or at the IEP meeting provide and inform parents of students with disabilities about the board's policy regarding restraint and seclusion. And our very last paragraph has been changed to read, if a student attends an approved private school for students with disabilities or alternative public school placement, the school shall provide the parent and sending district annually or at the IEP meeting the policy and procedures regarding restraint and seclusions. Policy number 5611, removal of students for firearm offenses. This has also had revisions made to it. In the second paragraph, we removed the superintendent may modify on a case-by-case basis the removal of a general education student in accordance with the NJAC 6A:16-5.5B1. And the second to last paragraph has been changed to read as, the superintendent of schools biannually shall submit to the Commissioner of Education a report on each incident under NJAC 6A:16-5.5, utilizing the Student Safety Data System pursuant to NJAC 6A:16-5.3D1. Also, policy 5613, removal of student for assault with weapon offenses. Policy 5842, equal access of student organizations. And policy 5850, social events and field trips. I move that we approve items 1 and 2.
Second.
Second, Mr. Miller, thank you for seconding it. Is there discussion? Ms. Ruiz?
Thank you, Ms. Grisales. The welcoming policy on our agenda refers to a proposed policy named on the actual policy, students' access to education, student privacy, and immigration enforcement. This policy would affect all students, not just immigrant students, not just students perceived to be immigrants. This policy is not an immigration enforcement policy. Districts and school boards have no authority to enforce immigration. So that part is a misnomer. The welcoming school policy is a privacy policy. Like I said, not an immigration policy. And even the students' access to education, student privacy, and quote, immigration enforcement policy is a privacy policy. There is no immigration enforcement in this policy. The name came from a name change when the Hackensack Board of Education passed a version of the welcoming schools policy with minor edits and that name change. This board has been discussing the welcoming schools policy for at least 3 years. The welcoming schools policy, as we've stated in previous sessions, was drafted by the New Jersey Alliance for Immigrant Justice. And this alliance includes experts in immigration law. And by experts, I mean actual attorneys, not just advocates, although advocates may also be experts in that field. Experts in immigration law, in civil rights law, in privacy law, and in education law. The welcoming schools policy was drafted with extreme care to ensure compliance with federal law, with state law, with education law, and to ensure protection for the students, for students' rights, for privacy, and for school administrators, to ensure that school administrators did not inadvertently step into a risky area that would expose the school district to liability. This was a very, very carefully drafted policy that took years and many experts to draft. The Hackensack Board of Education looked at the welcoming schools policy, made some changes, mostly minor edits. It made that name change, as I explained. It passed it as policy number 5890, which you can see on the Hackensack Board of Education policies. The policy that we now have before us, this welcoming policy, welcoming policy, it says on our agenda, and access to education, student privacy, and education enforcement on the actual policy is not at all, does not match at all the welcoming school policy drafted by the New Jersey Alliance for Education, the New Jersey Alliance for Immigrant Justice, nor does it match the policy that Hackensack passed, the access to education, student privacy, and education enforcement. I strongly oppose this proposed policy as written. It would actually harm our students and our administrators, not protect them as initially intended by the welcoming schools policy. I do not speak for the New Jersey Alliance for Immigrant Justice. I do not speak for this board, but I speak for myself when I say that the drafters of that document, I know for sure, are not supportive of this proposed policy. And I know that because as a volunteer member of an organization in a different capacity, I am a member of that alliance as well. I communicate with the alliance members regularly, and they are not, and I am not, in support of this proposed policy. Specifically, the proposed policy in the first language, in the first paragraph, completely guts out the point of the policy. It takes out the language, the school board, based on its educational expertise and as part of its deliberative process as our governing body, has found that collection of information that it could expose immigrant status of a student or their caregiver and access to a school site or records by immigration law enforcement agents substantially disrupts the learning environment and violates state or federal law. Despite statute, which is what we replaced that first paragraph with, just a reiteration of the statute, there could be inadvertent ways in which our district could expose immigrant families. This is a statement of values. It sets the tone for the policy and explains why we're bothering with it in the first place, why we're trying to implement it. So I can't fathom why it was removed. I don't understand why you would remove the statement of values.
Ms. Ruiz,
but even
if I may interrupt you for a second, I apologize. I just want to make sure that are you going to go through each of the concerns that you have, and how long do you think you're going to take? You have been about for 3 minutes already.
As long as I need, Ms. Grisales.
All right. Is everyone okay with that situation at this point, please?
Ms. Grisales, we don't need permission as long as I have the floor, unless somebody makes a motion.
You do have the floor. I just wanted to kind of sense how long you think you're going to take, so we're all prepared for that. I appreciate that. If you can just kind of guess, how long you think you would take to discuss it.
I have something written that I didn't time out. So under point 1, under information collection.
Ms. Catano, did I see? 1 second, Ms. Ruiz, again, to interrupt you.
Ms. Grisales, point of order. You can't just randomly interrupt me. There has to be a motion or a point.
I saw a hand, so that's why I'm trying to address what that hand is. Ms. Catano, what is your?
It's fine. I just wanted to propose if we can just remove it from the agenda, take a better look at the
well, you would have to present it as a motion in order to do that, and Ms. Carroll does have the floor, so you would have to kind of present that.
And
then Ms. Ruiz would continue.
Under parliamentary procedure and Robert's Rules of Order, Ms. Catano can certainly make that motion when it is her turn to speak. Right now, I have the floor. So in point 1, under information collection, we changed implicate to expose. And that might seem like a minor word. It isn't. Every word in this policy matters. So U.S. citizens, whether we are naturalized like me or born in this country like many of the rest of the board members, because of our accents or because of the color of our skin, we may be perceived to be immigrants. So that word implicate covers that possibility. You're not exposing somebody's immigrant status if they're not an immigrant. But if you are somehow implicating that a US citizen is in fact not a US citizen, that's problematic. And that has happened. We have deported US citizens. So that word is important. Under point 2 of the information collection section, again, the substantive language was removed. It read, all schools in the district will limit their data collection to the student's age, residency, and immunization history. That same language is also in the Hackasound policy, but even though it's the heart of the policy, that was also removed. This isn't just about what is required to enroll students. This is about what our district is retaining, what records that they have that would put our students' privacy rights at risk. So minimizing the information that is collected at the outset is important, and that's what this policy is about. Then again, the meaningful language in other parts of the proposed policy are also deleted. Expressly was removed in point 2A, affirmatively in point 2B, absolutely in point 1 under access to school sites. And again, it may sound like it's just one word, Ms. Ruiz, what's the big deal? Attorneys know that one word could change the entire meaning of a policy. And that's what has been done here. If we are simply going to reiterate existing law, which we can do, we can summarize the existing law and take out that absolutely, there's really no point in passing this policy. If we are not going to prohibit ICE from coming into our school grounds unless absolutely required by law, then there's no need for this policy because that's already the case. The most egregious error in this proposed policy is the additional language in point A and the addition of point B under access to school sites. There, under point A, if you look at the Hackensack policy, it's very clear, simple, right to the point. Request a valid judicial warrant. That's all you need. Request a valid judicial warrant. And instead, we add language about getting into a conversation with the ICE, having our superintendent, who is not an immigration lawyer, getting into a conversation, or our principal, who is not an immigration lawyer, getting into a conversation with an ICE agent asking about sensitive location. Like, we need to think about what the response could be to that. First of all, sensitive location is a memo. It's not a law, and they don't follow it already as it is. ICE has gone into schools in Queens, has gone into hospitals, has gone into churches. So that is out the window. But even if we are going to engage into that conversation, what is our superintendent going to do if the ICE agent says, oh, well, we're not following sensitive location because we think this kid is a gang member? Or, oh, we're not following the sensitive location because we think this kid is a terrorist. You're going to tell them, no, you can't come in and get an alleged terrorist. No, you can't come in and get an alleged gang member. You're putting the administrator at risk by having them ask these questions. The administrator should not be asking anything except, do you have a judicial warrant? No, see you later, come back with one. That's it. That is the only thing our administrator should be saying. And then in point B, you add, if the officer has a warrant or order, asked to make a copy. An ICE order is not a valid order. There is no judge signing that. Why would you ask for that? That's exactly the opposite of what we're trying to do. We don't want ICE agents or Border Patrol or whoever willy-nilly coming in with a piece of paper that their boss scribbled on and saying, we want student X. That's exactly the opposite of what we want. If I am understanding the will of this board based on conversations I've had with each and every board member about this issue. So it's, I would completely support Ms. Catano's motion when she makes it. This proposed policy is not welcoming. It is not safe. It is not safe for our board. It is not safe for our administrators. And most importantly, it is not safe for our students. And as you can tell by my voice, I am thoroughly frustrated that it has taken us 3+ years to get to this when we have a template that's clear and simple. Pass it or don't pass it. We have a template from the Hackensack Board of Ed. Pass it or don't pass it. Stop playing with it. We either want to protect our students, we don't want to protect our students, or we want to stay silent on whether we want to or not. But messing up something that took years and blood and sweat and tears to create based on information that's erroneous is a huge mistake.
Thank you, Ms. Ruiz. Thank you for trying to protect our administrators, for trying to protect our kids. I understand your passion, and I thank you for informing us on what your perspective is. Are there any other board members? Mr. Crude, is there anything that you want to kind of provide in regards to the changes made or from the policy committee in regards to what this is?
I'd like to just add a few things, but given Ms. Ruiz's comments, I think that it may make sense to follow the course of action that Ms. Catano had suggested, which is tabling it or putting it off for further review, because otherwise it's going to be very difficult in the context of it during the board meeting to try to address all of the issues. And I just want to, the one thing I just want to say is that I did consult actually several times with, at the time, I think her name was Joanna Kelly, who was with NJAIJ at the time. And I don't believe she's with NJAIJ anymore for some reason, but I did consult with her, and certainly the intent of this policy is to follow most of the provisions. There are a couple things that I think are improvements that I suggested to Ms. Callie that they may want to consider for including their policy going forward. There are a couple of the things I think would be fine to put back in if that was the board's inclination. But again, I think it sounds like it's a lengthy discussion where we really need to consider all the comments and go through it carefully. So, if there's any specific questions, I can try to address them, but I think it does seem like it makes sense to do that perhaps in the policy committee.
Mr. Miller, thank you. I mean, at length, Mr. Crute, we have been trying to pass this for 3 years, and Ms. Ruiz is very. If I can make a suggestion to the board, is really maybe to have a guest at your policy and invite Ms. Ruiz or anyone else from the community to really get this going, because I know as a whole board, I can speak for the whole board at this point. I know that we want to protect kids. We are not. Any other intent. And I know that administration has talked about, we want a guide to be able to provide to our community and our administrators and our kids that we are on their side. We are going to protect them. Mr. Miller?
Yes, I'm on the policy committee. I was on last year and this year, obviously not the year before that. But I know that when we discussed this and getting recommendations from our attorney, I know that the prior year, there was a lot more that was removed and more was put back into this year's policy as he was looking at the welcoming committee meeting. This is what was mentioned to us. A lot of the wording was back in there. But I did receive Ms. Ruiz's information in an email about her points. And, I think there are a lot of valid points there. So I definitely agree that we should have her come to the policy meeting and have this conversation together to make sure that we are on point with the welcoming statement.
Thank you, Mr. Miller. I think that was one thing that we had discussed in the past. I don't know kind of what happened in that regards. I know when I was first in the policy in the first year of my election, one of the things we talked about is only really removing the Bible annotation situation. That's how I remember with Mr. Crude wanting to add some things as referencing other board policies. So I don't know what's going on and how it kind of switched, but I know that the real purpose here is to protect all. So you would need to kind of make a motion and see where we need to go with this. I see Ms. Mullin's hands. You have the floor.
Does anyone have a hard copy of the Hackensack policy?
I saw Ms. Dr. Sainer raise her hand somewhere.
And you're on the policy?
I'm the alternate. I'm not an official member, but I attend the meetings.
Okay, so you have copies of that. So that can be a template to help you, maybe shorten this 3-year process.
Yeah, and also, if I may request, if someone forwarded me Ms. Ruiz's, apparently she has written comments that would, in advance of the policy committee, that would help to review along with the Hackensack policy.
I think that we have our resources here from our board. We have, Carol, Ms. Ruiz, who has that information, knowledge. We have Mr. Crude, who has the educational information. I think we really need to kind of move this forward I would love to see something happen by August, but I understand there's a lot of things going on. So policy, you know, obviously I trust the members there and I know the full board as well. So we wait for your recommendations. Do we have a motion in regards to how we're going to move forward? Ms. Katana?
It would just be a motion to postpone that one policy.
One item.
Until the
I
next
make a
meeting.
motion that we table that policy.
Okay, Mr. Miller is making
Second.
a motion to table. Are we all clear what tabling means?
Yeah, it's really
Yeah.
to postpone it till the next
To
meeting.
put it, yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
All right, so
Table
tabling it.
policy 5110.
Correct. So I have the board has a motion from Mr. Bill Miller to table 5110 to next meeting, and Ms. Catano is seconding it. Is any board discussion on that motion? Do we need to take a vote on that first before we take a vote on the
Yes, and
other
that
one,
can
correct?
just be a voice vote. You don't need to have
Okay,
a
perfect. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Perfect. So the motion carries. Mr. Minkowitz, I see you. Perfect. You got that?
Yes, who was the second?
Ms. Catano.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. So if we now go to the motion of approving policies 1 through 2, with the exception of 5110, Ms. Viveros made that motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Dr. Sainer seconds. Any further comment, questions? Mr. Minkowitz, if we have roll call, please, for that.
Ms. Catano,
Yes.
Mr. Miller,
Yes.
Ms. Mullen,
Yes.
Ms. Nutting,
Yes.
Mr. Robles,
Yes.
Ms. Ruiz,
Yes.
Dr. Sainer,
Yes.
Ms. Viveros,
Yes.
Ms. Grisales.
Yes. Thank you all. Very good discussion. Dr. Sainer, would you please provide us with an update on the Committee of Finances and Facilities?
Sure. My update will be short. A lot of what happened at the Facilities and Finance Committee was reported by other administrators or at other committees. We are switching from our old system to a new system. So one of the challenges is sort of rounding out the 2019-2020 school year in the old system and moving into the 2020-2021 school year in the new system. So that's taking place. Mr. Griffin and Mr. Minkowitz are balancing accounts, so we are making progress in that area. We are restructuring the payroll process so that one person will be in charge of that job start to finish, and we'll be hiring help in this area as well. An important point from the audit is that everybody involved in budgeting in the district has received training this year and has a copy of the purchasing manual, and this training will continue yearly to make sure that we're doing that process correctly. Dr. McLaughlin and Mr. Minkowitz both met with both the town of Dover and the Borough of Victory Gardens to discuss the taxes and the formula for calculating those taxes. So we will have an update. I'm not sure if they're prepared to give that tonight, but there will be an update on tax information. The state of New Jersey has said that the final state aid notice, if you remember, we were given a number prior to our April meeting when we passed the budget for next year. We were given an amended amount last month, I believe. That amount is not final. The final amount will be given in late September or early October, which makes running the district troublesome, but there's nothing to be done about that. Dover and Mine Hill have had conversations about talking about our send receive contract. As we move forward with our board goals and developing a facilities plan, we are looking to possibly hire a demographer. Mine Hill has expressed some interest in possibly sharing that demographer as our districts are intertwined. And we are raising our sub rate to a COVID special rate because substitutes are both in short supply and may be in short supply when the school year begins. So those rates are changing for the duration of this emergency. I would like to move that the board approves resolutions under finance and facilities, numbers 1 through 30.
Second.
Ms. Viveros has seconded the motion on the floor. Are there any board points of discussion? Dr. Sainer and then Ms. Ruiz, please.
Okay, I had a question about the charges for breakfast. Mr. Minkowitz did some research that, and I don't remember that we did make this change so that there would be no charge for breakfast. And I was curious as to why there is still a charge for high school breakfast and how breakfast after the bell ties in with this.
I am not certain of the history of the decision. I did get a follow-up by the owner of the food service management company that said the extra cost is minimal and that our revenue stream is strong and it will more than make up for the small loss in revenue.
Mr. Minkowitz, are you referring to the loss of revenue for the elementary and the middle school, or referring to if we did not charge for the high school breakfast?
I have to go back and
I think Mr. Minkowitz is referring to the, because I believe I had seen a question in regard to this, to the high school.
Okay.
I can give the history because I know that when I came to the district, one of the things that was on the plate, so to speak, we're talking about food, so it's a good analogy, was breakfast for our students. And so we did make the decision that we could move ahead with that without a charge and do that for all our students. We could do that because of the high population we have who qualified for free and reduced lunch. At the time, Pomptonian did not think that it was a necessary step for the high school, but K-8 was a big step all by itself. So so that breakfast piece, that breakfast after the bell piece, was something that happened when we came to the district early last year.
Thank you.
And if I may add or question, one of the things that I believe the hope was that to be able to do, reduce from one section and then the high school, just to see the impact that would have on our budget or revenue, right? And to see if we can cover it with anything else that we, at the end of the year, usually we had money left over, right? That we from the charges. I believe that was something that was occurring as well, correct? Am I making sense?
Yes, you are. Yeah. And I think, and Mr. Minkowitz can correct me if I'm wrong, I think that based on this year's totals, especially while we were in person, it didn't seem to adversely impact, the revenue stream. And as Mr. Minkowitz already mentioned, the Pomptonian director seems to feel that we could support a next step.
Okay, perfect. Dr. Sain, is it related or can I come back?
It's related to this. So just as a question, is this something that we could expect to see by the time school starts in September?
Yeah, I think we can come back to the board in August with some type of formal recommendation.
Perfect. Thank you. Ms. Ruiz?
At the Facilities and Finance Committee, we did receive some information regarding the formula for determining the tax implications on the Dover community and the Victory Garden community. And there were some changes to that. Do we have now new numbers for what the average resident in Dover and the average resident in Victory Gardens may expect to see in their taxes? Any changes?
I do not have, I don't have particular numbers. I do know that the correction in the A4Fs in the tax apportionment is a 2% increase for Victory Gardens and a 2% increase for Dover. So theoretically, what you paid last year for your school taxes should be a 2% increase Of course, that might be affected by assessed valuation of the town, whether it went up and down, maybe your particular assessed valuation of your house. But no, I have not had that data to get the details yet. I will upcoming, for sure in the next budget discussion, that will be a detailed discussion, but it was corrected to 2% for each.
And Mr. Salas, if this needs to wait for that next budget discussion, that's fine. But I'm wondering, what is that formula? Why is this new formula? Why didn't we have it all?
What happened?
The state didn't give us all the information, so I just want to make sure the full board is clear on the changes to the tax implications on Victory Gardens and Dover and what happened with that formula.
I can try and help with that as well. For about 10 years, the formula has had a factor of valuation and enrollment. When the interim business administrator did the apportionment, he didn't know that there was the assessed valuation part of it. He only did enrollment, so that threw the number off a little bit. It was corrected to follow the formula that's been since inception, and it is much closer to what it has been the past few years. It wasn't a big jump either way.
I'm sorry, Mr. Minkowitz, I know we're putting you on the spot when it comes to something that you kind of, grandfathered in. Would you restate the formula and the explanation answering the question that you did for Ms. Ruiz in a little more layman's terms for those of us that are not good with numbers like me? If you could kind of, provide a little bit of a little bit simpler explanation if you can.
Yes, can I ask for some help from Mr. Crew? I know he gave a good explanation of the
please
of the enrollment and the assessed value portion.
Okay. Yeah, and I don't know the accounting numbers or the details of how the formula works, but what we learned in looking into this was that when the districts were consolidated, a formula was set up by the executive county superintendent of schools, which was ultimately approved by the commissioner of education and actually was challenged through the courts and was ultimately approved, in which the apportionment between Dover and Victory Gardens, as Mr. Minkowitz has said, is not just based strictly on population only, but it's a formula that relates to a combination of population and valuation and value of properties in the respective towns. And that formula had been used apparently since the beginning, and it's about 10 years or so since that process started. And then this past year, when the budget was developed, only enrollment was included in determining the formula. And so when Mr. Minkowitz took over, that had to be corrected. And essentially what it was just going back to the formula the way it's been and the way that it was supposed to be and the way that it was approved to be. And so that's why the correction was needed. It's been in place for 10 years. And just for some reason, initially this year, a slightly different formula was used, but now it's been corrected.
Perfect. I appreciate that very much. So the formula that has been approved by the county superintendent for the last 10 years, right? It's formula a combination of population or enrollment plus the property value. And that was not taken into consideration when it was first done prior to Mr. Minkowitz, correct?
That's correct.
Thank you. Thank you all for the clarification. Any other discussions or questions from the board? Okay, I believe we have a motion moved by Dr. Sainer, a second by Ms. Viveros. Mr. Minkowitz, may the board have a roll call, please?
Ms. Catano.
Yes.
Mr. Miller.
Yes.
Ms. Mullen.
Yes.
Ms. Nutting.
Yes.
Mr. Robles.
Yes.
Ms. Ruiz.
Yes.
Dr. Sainer.
Yes.
Ms. Viveros.
Yes.
Ms. Grisales.
Yes. Is there a motion for the board to recommend the approvals outlined in items A through T?
I move that we approve motions A through T under appointments.
Dr.
Second.
Sainer motion, Mr. Miller second. Are there any board member discussions? Ms. Ruiz?
Thank you, Ms. Crisales. Maybe the rest of the board can help me. Oh, did you call on me?
No, it's okay. I was pointed to Mr. Robles that I see him.
Oh, okay. Maybe I'm remembering wrong, but don't we usually make some of these appointments soon after the election of the board president? And if so, are we making them late? Are we making them early? Or are we changing the schedule for a particular reason? And then my second question is just, what is the job of the right to know officer?
I think I can answer that question. So in the old days, when we used to have board elections and the budget election in April, at that reorg meeting, which was naturally towards the end of the school year, all the reorg items were done when the board was reorganized. When they changed, and those districts that adopted the new November election, when they changed that, boards started to do things in different ways. Sometimes they would do some reorg items when the new president was appointed in January, which was much earlier, in the, way before the next school year. And in some instances, they split the reorg items and did some in January and would do some at the end of the year. Now, I don't have any history in Dover, so this is the first time that we're doing this where, I've asked for things to be done. They have to be done annually. So they have to be appointed for the next school year. So we're certainly not late. We're right where we should be. One of the advantages of doing it at this point in the year, especially when it comes to appointing various facilitators and liaisons like the homeless coordinator, and is that we have current employees to appoint, because sometimes what happens is people leave you and then you end up doing it twice. You have to remember that they have to go back and revisit it. I think it's a better system to do it in July, which is the first month of the new year, or in June. But if the board had different feelings, we could always adopt it, but we're not late. The right to know officer is so all the chemicals that we use in the district, cleaning materials, all those substances that could possibly have health risks. There is a large manual that is a right to know manual that we have to make sure is updated. We have to make sure that somebody's in charge of that somebody's doing required training. And the right to know officer is the person who's responsible for that.
Thank you. Mr. Robles?
Yeah, I just want to make a motion. See, I don't know how much longer we have, but we could take a 5-minute break or a restroom break.
Okay. I don't think we need a formal motion for that.
No, you don't need a formal
Everyone
motion.
in agreement with 5 minutes? Yes, okay, I see thumbs up. So we'll be back at 10:20.
Just let the public know, right? Explain
Yes,
to the public.
the public's hearing it right now, right? We're
Right,
live. Yes.
Did we do a roll call?
No,
on the
I
motion?
asked, is there everyone in favor? I saw thumbs up. So is there anyone opposed to 5 minutes?
No, I meant that the motion that we were in the middle of.
Yeah, I think we were. 1 second. Thank you, Mr. Miller.
Yeah.
Mr. Minkowitz, we didn't, correct?
Correct. We need to do a roll call.
Thank you, Mr. Miller. All right, so we had a discussion. No more questions with us. See, I need a break. No more questions or comments about A through T? Perfect. If Mr. Minkowitz, roll call, please.
Ms. Catano,
Yes.
Mr. Miller,
Yes.
Ms. Moen,
Yes.
Ms. Nutting,
Yes.
Mr. Robles,
Yes.
Ms. Ruiz,
Yes.
Dr. Sainer,
Yes.
Ms. Viveros,
Yes.
Ms. Grisales,
Yes. Perfect. We'll see you in 5 short minutes. Thank you all. Okay, I think we're waiting for a few more. One more minute. Ms. Eudes, are you, Ms. Catano, are you there? And Ms. Dallapaloo? I don't want to start without them. Perfect. Okay, we're going into old business. Oh no, Ms. Reese left. Still here, Ms. Reese? Okay, okay, I understand. Ms. Catano, can someone have access to her? I wish I can like press on her. Okay, all right, let's, we have quorum without Ms. Eudes. Let's continue, please. Oh no, Ms. Dallapaloo. I'm saying that. Okay, we don't need a motion to restart or anything like that, right, Mr. Crew? We're good to go? Perfect. I got it, I saw you. Okay, so if we can resume with our agenda with old business. Any board member have any old business? I did not see anything ahead of time. Is there anyone that has anything that did not inform? Did not provide, no surprise culture? Okay, I wanted for us to discuss our board goals. Our board retreat, I think, was very successful in discussing our strengths, our areas for growth, and our plans moving forward. If we could all have the board goals available for you to review, and we can have our formal discussion and agree to what we are going to do moving forward as a board for our own training, for our own growth, and obviously in line with what were to come with the district goals in the near future. Any comments, any thoughts? Mr. Miller and then Ms. Ruiz, please.
The only thing out of everything that we talked about is that I still believe that we need to develop a board practice for social media. I think that we need to come to an agreement on, how social media will be used. We all know we have our First Amendment right to be able to speak out, but I think that there are times when there are certain things that are brought up in social media that are a direct business of the board, that we should discuss it as a board first and not have the discussion start in social media.
Okay, we had requested Ms. Peterson to send us a template, and unfortunately, I forward you what she shared with us. There was not actually a template for her to provide to us from other boards. She did provide a form on action steps to take. We did discuss, from what I remember, all of us in agreement that we were all going to go to trainings. There was one that I just forwarded regarding ethics, I believe. And so what is the consensus of other board members in regards to developing what Mr. Miller is saying? And I'm assuming that would be adding a sixth goal to our board goals?
It's actually part of 5.
Okay, okay. Social media use, okay. So what are people's thoughts? Did I see a hand? Ms. Ruiz, go ahead.
Well, my initial question was just confirming, I saw the goals earlier. I think they were emailed, and I'm trying to, are they on the shared drive?
Yes, they are.
Are they? Okay, I know I emailed them to you.
Okay, I'm looking at an email from Dr. Sainer with the board goals on July 11.
Yes.
So I'm presuming
that's the same one.
Those are the same exact ones.
5 goals, yes. I just re-forwarded them for this meeting, so that way you had them right.
Okay,
It's the
good.
same.
Okay, so I'm looking at the right thing. And I did watch, since I wasn't able to stay, I did watch the rest of the meeting, and I would echo that it was a privilege to serve among board members who were so committed to board goals and to have honest and lengthy and detailed discussions. And I echo these goals. I think, as I said at that meeting, right, the only person on this board who may possibly have any complaints about social media is me. And any practice that this board could come up with would not be a valid practice if it violated my First Amendment rights. So there's nothing, I mean, I say this with respect and love and admiration for all of you and the work that we do. There's nothing that this board is going to draft that's going to change my comments on Twitter. Like, I already, believe it or not, I know some of you may not believe it, I already bite my tongue way more than you could imagine. I already am very mindful of what I say and don't say. And I know that that's clearly not mindful enough for some of you. I'm an advocate. I'm an attorney. I know my rights. I know the law, and I fight for justice. And I do that on this board. I do that in my personal life, in my professional life. I do that. I breathe it. And I promise you, I have made every effort to limit where I can. Like, this is the best that it gets. So I think that trying to go ahead and draft it, but I think it's a waste of our time. I signed up for the ethics training. I'll sign up for the social media training. I've had it every single year. I could give it to the rest of the board. You know, like, I just, you know, for what that's worth.
Thank you, Ms. Ruiz. Dr. Sainer?
I was thinking of this from a different, and this is my own personal perspective. There's a lot of misinformation out there, especially on social media, about what we can and what we can't do as board members. And a question that I have, I understand my First Amendment rights and what I can and cannot say. I guess the area that's gray for me that I would like more clarity on is it possible? Is there a safe and ethical way for us to educate the public using social media? Right? There are, you know, if we were to stumble upon a comment on social media that misrepresented what we are capable of doing, right? There are certain things that are not in our power. Is it okay? Is there a right or a wrong way to educate the public? I know we try a lot at these meetings to explain to the public what we can and can't do. We did it tonight talking about merit goals and board goals and district goals and what the difference is. I'm babbling, but is there a way for us to use social media safely without misrepresenting the board? I know only Ms. Grisales speaks for the board, to help educate the public so they understand what we can and cannot do.
Thoughts, comments? Mr. Robles?
So I know, and again, it depends on the platforms that you consider, or that we would consider as a platform that we want to voice the board's point of view, or the board's do's and don'ts of what we can do. I agree. I think there's room for improvement in our board collective voice, and in particular when it comes to social media. So I would recommend that we explore the option of perhaps creating an account that represents the board. Obviously, I know, Ms. Grisales, you would be the president, the one that technically would be the voice of the board. But I do think that we need to not only be aware of what the board's roles are, but to help the public be aware as well. And so I think that there needs to be some more than just let everybody say what they want to say and we just stay quiet and don't say anything except when we get on the board here, because you know, and again, there's no judgment on anybody. And I know Ms. Ruiz mentions herself, and I appreciate her honesty on that, but it's not just about her, it's about everybody that's on the board, that at some point we might feel like we want to say something, and it's for good reasons, because there's obviously issues that are of concern to everybody in our community. And yet we can't, because there is no voice of the board in social media per se. So I think we should consider that as something that we could establish. And, I think it doesn't do any harm if there's something that we could clarify for the public. And again, I think we also have to understand that there's some things that go along with that, right? Having access to that account and, God forbid somebody gets access that shouldn't have access and start posting stuff like that. So we need to explore all that. But I'm in agreement that I think we should do something about it, not just, stay quiet about it.
Right. So we're talking about two connected but different things, right? So if we're talking about having a social media guideline, right? Those, from the trainings, they exist in regards to be careful what you say, unless Mr. Crew, you've seen anything else. I really haven't seen from the trainings that I've gone. You have your First Amendment right. And it's between being what you shouldn't say, what you could say, and what you may say, right? So those lawyers can tell me about the use of those words, right? So I think it's important that, it's a great idea for us to, we've always talked about improving our communication with our community. I think we have to, like Mr. Robles is saying, be very careful of how to do it. There's nothing that says out there that you cannot educate the community when there is a misrepresentation of the board role. You can, right? You have to say you're speaking for yourself, even though you're a board member. You can, obviously that lends you to more discussions, right? I mean, I constantly do it, not on social media, in person, when I talk to people, when they call me and ask me about things, when they, so I don't do it per se in the social media as much as maybe other board members feel comfortable doing. So I think it's really about us feeling comfortable and really knowing what our role is as a board member, and that just because I'm the president doesn't mean I have more power than anyone else. I'm just the voice that you tell me what voice to give, right? What message to send. So when it comes to creating a Facebook account, let's say, so I see you, Mr. Miller. We can, right? We can do that. We have to kind of know all the parameters, and it has to kind of be by one person. And so we have to kind of think about the pros and cons with that.
I know Scott wants to talk, but I just think we have to be very cautious about the board putting together its own social media account, because if statements are made as a board outside of a meeting, you could inadvertently start providing official statements that haven't been voted on, haven't had consensus. We have a district Facebook, we have a district Twitter, we have access to YouTube. There are things that we can take advantage of, as you're saying, for educational purposes. But I think for like an outreach, like a proactive outreach, I would just be cautious about going down that road, and certainly consult with John and school boards in regard to any thoughts on that before going too far down that avenue.
Thank you. Mr. Miller?
Well, and to Dr. McLaughlin's point, the community relations action plan, the community relations team would work with the administration to talk about all the communication efforts that we currently have. So, and that could be part of the discussion, is how the school district, like he was saying, would be able to improve communications with the community on social media. But back to the other point, I already agree that we've had the training that tells us what we need to do. But the simple fact is that when we have topics that come up that have to do with personnel, such as the suggestion to add to our agenda today to talk about the SRO, that was the right way to do it, not to put information out on social media to say I'm opposed to the SRO or police in the schools and whatnot. That wasn't necessary. Just follow our protocol and say, I'd like to bring this up as an agenda item for the whole board to discuss, instead of having it boil out into the community. Because at our last meeting, you saw, we didn't put anything out. We didn't even have it as a discussion item, but it was out there in social media. And we had a whole bunch of letters from people mainly in favor of it, and then those opposed to it. But we did not discuss it as a board. So that's what I'm saying, is that we need to be sensitive as to the things that we put out there that are directly related to the business we do as a board. Just bring it to the board.
Okay, Mr. Miller, but I just want to clarify that what I'm assuming you're talking directly about the situation with Ms. Ruiz, and I really want to keep this to the whole board, not only Ms. Ruiz, not make it about only her. So I think it's important to know that, hold on a second, I'm sorry if I may finish, that comment about the SROs not in our school was made in her individual capacity, not as a representation of what as the board we're doing, correct? Are we on that same page in
I don't
regards to
know that. I don't know that, because unless you look for that statement, you don't know that. When people
Okay.
see what we say, they think we're representing the board. So it's the perception, and that's what Ms. Peterson was saying when we had the discussion at the last meeting. So
Okay,
all I'm saying is that it's very easy to have the conversation with the board as opposed to putting it out there. And to me, it's not giving all the information to the public.
So I know I see your hand, Ms. Ruiz, but I want to kind of just, after you speak, just to make sure that all board members, please comment and speak up in regards to, do you want a social media, what are you calling it, Mr. Miller? I forgot again, a social media.
What Ms. Peterson was calling is develop a board practice for social media.
A social media practice, right? Is that what you as board members want? So please think about that while Ms. Ruiz, you wanted the floor.
Yeah, like I said, I don't oppose it. In fact, I proposed a code of conduct for this board back in 2016 that encompassed not just social media, but also the way we speak to one another, timeliness, etc. I know maybe not all of you have seen it, but the majority of you have actually seen it. So it is helpful to have practices. It is also very important to speak honestly and factually about what the issue is. This board discussed SROs, school resource officers, in 2018. This is not something we have not discussed. We discussed it in March, we discussed it in September, and before that discussion and after that discussion, in my private life and in my professional life. I'm a public defender. In my private life, in my career, I've never been in favor of having police officers in school. That has never been something that is a secret. And no member of our community, I would dare say, would say Carol Ruiz speaks for Jacqueline Viveros. Jacqueline Viveros clearly has her own voice. Same is true for Tia Netting. The same is true for Dr. Krista Sainer. The same is true for Scott Miller. The same is true for Linda Mullen. The same is true for Diana Grisales. No one in our community is under any misconception that I speak for anybody on this board, or that we agree. We have voted in all sorts of different ways many times. We have worked together on many projects where we agreed or disagreed. Mr. Miller and I may disagree on this board table, and then you may find us, leading the same project for the holiday parade in town. So I think there is a small but loud, right? That's what we call it, a small but loud group that monitors my social media and doesn't like it. And too bad, so sad. Like, it's not, no one thinks that I speak for the rest of the board. The SRO is not something new. Everyone knows how I felt about it. The comment Mr. Miller is referring to was not the first, and it won't be the last that I will make about it. And in fact, many of the things that comment had nothing to do with Dover SROs. It was specifically about SROs in other states, and it listed the state, and it listed the student, and it listed the year. Nowhere did it say Dover. And it says on my social media, everything in my individual capacity. So we can have a practice in writing. We cannot have a practice in writing, but let's not pretend that this is about the board. And let's not pretend this is about adults with degrees and expertise not knowing how to use Facebook, because we all know how to do it.
Yes, Ms. Viveros.
To go off what Carol's saying, with her statement on social media where she put something about the SROs in different states, I didn't personally read it, but I did see the aftermath. And this is where I'm coming out with my comments from our last board meeting. We had multiple people from the community reaching out to us, addressing it. And I don't know if it's the ones that will always follow you and attack what you're saying, this little group or whatever you're pointing out. It's just regular citizens in town hearing this and not knowing your full story and bringing it to us on a totally different level because they don't see your actual post. Maybe they just hear about it from someone else. So this is when it concerns me because it affects us as a board and not just you.
I think that is important, Mr. Miller, when those things happen, that you are addressing it with that person directly, right? Because it may impact the board if we let it, right? I think it's important that when, for example, Ms. Viveros, if you were approached by it and someone said, hey, Ms. Ruiz is saying this, is this what you're going to do with the board? That you're addressing, right? She speaks for herself, not me, right? Or not the full board. And having that direct communication with Ms. Ruiz. Hey, Ms. Ruiz, this is, kind of what's happening. And this is, I think it's important that we have that team team situation among us, because if we don't, then that's how we can move forward, right? Please remember the focus on the board goals. It's 10:42. Mr. Miller.
I just want to point out that we did not have a discussion on this since 2018. November 20th, 2018, I was at the meeting, sitting in the media center when the presentation was being made by the Dover chief and the Fort Lee chief on the school resource officers. I was not on the board at that point in time. And then once I got back onto the board, then it was approved to go forward and the administration approved it. I haven't heard anything about it since then. I don't have a Twitter account. I don't see any of this firsthand. I'm just saying, just like Ms. Viveros says, the aftermath of this, if we just brought it forward and say, okay, I want to bring this up again, just like you're saying, be open and honest, bring it to the board, have the discussion here, because you can interpret things very differently. An email you send to me and I read it and it sounds like something different. Until I talk to you, I don't understand it. So when I see a message, it says that we want the police out of our schools, and I see pictures of what happened in other schools. You can interpret that as this board member wants the police out of our schools. How else can you see it?
Mr. Miller, may I ask that we save this discussion specifically for the SR to our new business, which is that
okay, that's fine.
Right? Can we refocus on our board goals? Are we all good with all 5 goals? We've discussed about the social media practice. What do we think about it? Do we want it? Do we not? Can we move forward?
Well, I think this was all part of it. That's why we're having the discussion.
Right, but that's very specific SOR. So social media practice. Yes, Ms. Ruiz.
I move that this board approve the board goals and have a separate agenda item as to any social media or code of conduct practice for the board.
Is there a second for that?
I'll
Second.
Ms. Nutting, did I hear you, Ms. Nutting?
It was the second. It was trying to be
Ms.
quiet.
Nutting, second that we approve the board goals as is and have a separate social media board conduct discussion. Any comments, questions about that? Can we have a roll call? Mr. Minkowitz?
Sorry about that.
Okay.
I'm sorry. The only part I want to bring up from an agenda point of view is I don't think we have an attachment for the goals, in which case I think we would need to read them into the record.
Okay.
Although, Mr. Crute, you can correct me if you think I'm wrong about that.
Well, yeah, in other words, the public may not have seen them.
No.
Well, I want to make sure, since we're talking about the goals, and I know that there's been one circulated among the board to see, so I think everyone knows what they're approving, but typically we'd either have as attached or we'd have it embedded in the agenda.
Yeah,
so.
no, if it wasn't attached and the public hasn't seen it, then I do think it makes sense to read it into the record, if it's not.
Perfect, no problem. Let's read it into record. There's 5 goals. Can 5 board members read one each, please? Can someone start?
The Board of Education will hold quarterly conversations about facilities needs with relevant data, including monthly enrollment and class size. The two parts to that is the Facilities and Finance Committee will come up with an action plan, and they will engage in a demographer.
Go ahead.
The Board of Education will increase their knowledge of the district support systems and prepare an infographic listing services. Board members will also attend 2 parent forums and report back to the rest of the board. And then A, curriculum committee will lead the effort.
The
Number
Board of
3.
Education will attend a training involving equity and anti-racism. Krista Sainer and Jackie Viveros will lead this effort.
Number 4, please.
The Board of Education will develop a community relations action plan. The community relations will develop this in conjunction with administration.
Perfect. Number 5, please.
Each board member will attend a training of Robert's Rules of Order, Code of Conduct, Code of Ethics, social media use, or conflicts of interest. A, we will ask the NJSBA to do training in-house in these areas of training are not available through NJSBA's slate of offerings.
Perfect. Thank you. They're in our record now. So we have a motion by, I forgot already, by who was the motion? Who made the motion?
It was
Ms. Ruiz.
Miss
and
Ruiz.
Ms.
And,
Nutting.
and second by Ms. Nutting. I apologize. Thank you. Now can we have a roll call?
Ms. Catano,
Yes.
Mr. Miller,
Yes.
Ms. Mullen,
Yes.
She nodded yes.
Ms. Nutting,
Yes.
Mr. Robles,
Yes.
Ms. Ruiz,
Yes.
Dr. Sainer,
Yes.
Ms. Viveros,
Yes.
Ms. Grisales.
Yes, I just want to add, if we could put to the record or place in the record that we will be discussing the social media and conduct of the board in our future, please. Okay, perfect. If we can move to new business, Ms. Ruiz presented the point of discussing if the board would be open in revisiting the SRO agreement, which I forwarded to you that I found a draft from 2018. Ms. Ruiz?
Thank you, Ms. Grisales. The Dover Board of Education first discussed the possibility of a school resource officer program in March of 2018, March 27 to be exact. The discussion is available on YouTube and begins in part 1 at minute 17. The School Resource Officer Program Agreement, which we call the Memorandum of Understanding or MOU, was based on a template and does not include any language whatsoever about student rights, nor does it include any of the recommended language issued by the American Civil Liberties Union regarding memorandums of understanding or agreement for SROs, school resource officers. At about minute 27 of the recording of that March 27, 2018 session, the board is informed that the Memorandum of Understanding, the MOU regarding the school resource officers, SROs, is a quote live document that can be reviewed and that can be changed. The Dover School Board also learned at the September 4 meeting of 2018 that the school resource officer agreement was mostly unchanged from that first presentation in March, and we did adopt it on September 4, 2018. Our SRO program will be 2 years old this September, and this board, and I have asked several times, this is not the first time I've asked, our SRO program will be 2 years old this September, and this board has not received any information, any data regarding the effectiveness, regarding arrests, if any, regarding use of force, if any, regarding cost, if any, or any other factors regarding this program. To my knowledge, no changes whatsoever have been made to the contract, the MOU, the Memorandum of Understanding. And despite the recommendations by the New Jersey School Boards Association encouraging these agreements, these MOUs about SROs to be posted on the website, I have not seen our SRO MOU on our website. So I propose that the board, one, put the agreement on the, or I'm sorry, that the board request that the district put the agreement on the website so it's open for all to see. And that two, we task a committee. In the past, the personnel committee, it has been requested of the personnel committee to review the agreement. We don't have a personnel committee right now, so we could task a new committee or one of the existing committees to compare our current MOU with the ACLU's model agreement. And then, of course, that we actually have an evaluation of the program, right? Is it cost effective? Where, if anywhere, do changes need to be made to improve the program? So that we can make those decisions, we need data. So we would need the district to provide us an evaluation or any data that we could use to evaluate the program.
Ms. Grisales, if I may.
Yes, Ms. Mullen.
Okay, since we did all of that, Carol, in our past journey on this, the state has come out with a uniform state memorandum of agreement between education and law officials, and that's from the Office of Attorney General, and that was in 2019, and the State Department of Education, and they're very specific in what that committee will consist of that will look at that memorandum of agreement. It's not a board committee. It's the board president, it's the superintendent of schools. It's very specific. It's 71 pages that talks about how we have to look at the contract every year. It goes into the language. The ACLU has been involved in other states, but they have also inputted into our final agreement that we have to abide by. And it talks about the language and the rights and some of the changes that they made to give students more rights or us or the officers less jurisdiction, which we did not give them anyway. You know, there was no discipline, but it goes really specific and in a lot of details. So I would say, you know, we have to look at it annually anyway, according to the new regulations. So I see that as something administratively with our board president and the other people that they say should be on the committee, not all of us. They have it very specific and it's prescriptive in how they want it done. So.
Great, good point. So where do we move forward with this new business?
Well, you're asking me, Ms. Grisales, my new business remains that we receive the data and that we have an evaluation. So the committee can be aligned with the way Ms. Mullen said it, but it doesn't change that we need the data and it doesn't change that we need the evaluation.
Okay, Mr. Robles?
Yeah, I think the motion to have some sort of oversight about the memorandum makes sense. I'm not sure about getting data and all that stuff. I mean, we could talk about if the group that Ms. Mullen brought up, is that part of the requirements of the memorandum that they provide that? Then obviously they.
Oh, no, I'm not sure about the data, but there is a data collections that they talk about. But I have to tell you, it was 71 pages. Yeah. I only got through half of them today when I saw that was the new agenda item.
Correct, and there is in our MOU some stipulations regarding giving us some reports or giving us some information. So not as probably as detailed as the AG's suggestions, but there is of that we are supposed to review it every year in that 2018 version. It says on there clearly, and something about the chief or deputy chief providing us information along with administration and contact, and so there is some data that we were actually supposed to be receiving.
So yeah, I'm in favor of making that request and getting that data.
All right.
And then as Ms. Mullen promoted to have a group do what they're supposed to do with that.
Perfect. We would need a motion and then a second.
Ms. Grisales,
yes.
Before you make a motion, I think what I would like to review the data that Ms. Mullen has. I think that it sounds like there's a lot of this is legislatively driven, so I think we need to know what's there. We're certainly as an administration, and I think I can include the deputy chief in this as well, very open to looking at our program. We've read through the ACLU guidance. There's nothing in there that isn't productive and good, because it talks all about how you have a good program. I think one of the things,
just to clarify though, that's in regards to the SRO contract, which is separate than the MOU. So those are two different documents that it seems like we're talking about the same one, but they're two different.
Thank you for the clarification. I was biting my tongue to say we're talking about two different things.
Yeah.
Because the agreement is the state one, right?
Right.
That's what we were talking
And
about. That's
as
the one
far
that's
as the
70%.
contract goes, I have had some dialogue with the deputy chief, and there are some contractual pieces that we would also like to bring up, but we've had only preliminary discussion about it. So I think we can do some more work before the August meeting. You know, both in terms of the memorandum of agreement, looking at the legislative requirements and the contract. I think one of the things that I wanted to just kind of talk a little bit about, and I think should be well defined in our approach, is identifying the information that we will be looking for. Now, you know, so that we are in a position where we're accurately collecting that information as we go along. As far as I know, there were no mechanisms to collect information. So to try to provide data now, I'm going to say probably wouldn't be authentic, but we can identify data that we all agree is good data to collect. And it would be the administration's job, just like we do, you know, to use a totally different piece, just like we do with test scores, to present that to the board, you know, as you with an annual update.
Jim, just to clarify, are you talking about data about the SRO or data about?
No, not
MOU?
necessarily. No,
Okay.
it's data that's related to what, you know, why do we want an SRO and what do we think that we can collect? And in reading through some of the ACLU documentation, I think there were some suggestions in terms of what would be some good areas to look at. It doesn't mean that we have to, you know, that could be one of our informing pieces. But I think we need to all agree, you know, about what that would be, because when I hear data right now, I don't really know what data I would bring to the board at this point.
Yeah,
and I think that needs to be a discussion.
Definitely. So Mr. Miller had been waiting for a while. Apologize, Mr. Miller. And then Ms. Ruiz, please.
I totally agree on the review, and I'm very happy that we're having the discussion here because this is what we need to do. But I agree that the data would be kind of hard to collect at this point because the students haven't been in school since March. And so I don't know, what does the SROs do when they're not in school? I don't know.
Dr.
When we're not in school, I can answer that question.
Yes.
I'm sorry.
I thought maybe you froze.
No. The town asked if they could utilize the SROs for work within the town. So they're not working in the very, very beginning. They were at the food sites, but that probably was about a week. And there was such a need in the town for their services, and we were really good at the food sites. So the SROs have not been working in the buildings really since our closure, or with our student population.
Ms. Ruiz and then Dr. Sainer.
So in terms of data, there is still plenty of data that we can have, arguably, having not seen it, I don't know if it exists, but it should exist, from 2018. So one is cost. How much do the SROs cost our district, if anything? Right? And there is a cost. Does that money come from grants? Does it come from our budget? Does it come from our taxpayers? How much of it comes from the town, from the police department itself, right? We know it's a shared services agreement. So, so we can get that data and make that public and have a discussion about that. And if it costs X, right? What if any benefit does our district enjoy from spending X on police officers instead of, you know, any number of other resources that we might want to have for our students. Another data point that we could have is what if any arrests have come out of interactions between our students and the SROs? That's a little more nebulous because the SRO might be interacting with a student and the arrest might come later because now the student is being watched or is being investigated or something happens after school. So, you know, I don't know how easy that information would be to come by. Demographic information. How many of the interactions between the SROs and our students include Black students? We know Black students are a minority of our population, if they are a majority of the interactions with the SROs, that's a problem. So I don't know that we've collected that demographic data, but that's something, that's just 3 points that we would need to fully evaluate this program.
And I think those are data points we could discuss. The first one about cost, I think, is a contractual item versus a data point, because we know it up front and it doesn't change. I think, for example, the word interactions would have to be defined. What's an interaction? And because certainly, if at least in my experience, a good SRO practice is for SROs to have interactions throughout the day, positive interactions, visible interactions where kids come to the SROs in a way that SRO can have a productive and positive relationship with the student. So I think that's probably not the type of interactions we're talking about, and I think we would need to operationally define that. But I think we could begin this work, and I don't want to get ahead of our discussion, but I think that perhaps this might be policy work, because maybe what we're talking about is a contract and more of a policy, even if it's not a policy. I think that the language that was shared in the ACLU document was in large part policy language. So I don't think we need, I think that could be a committee that contributes. And then I really am anxious to see Ms. Mullen's document, because that is one that I'm going to say that I haven't. So
right, and I think Dr. Sain will be right with you. I think it's important to make sure that we are differentiating between the state MOA, right, the agreement, versus the contract. I know we called it MOU, and sometimes that causes confusion, but that is the shared services contract that we are talking about, that defines some things specifically for us, and then there's the macro, right, the big one for the state.
Well, there's the memorandum of understanding with law enforcement in general, but if there's specific provisions regarding an SRO or a school, other type of school resource
or other options.
Yeah,
correct. Yeah, and that would be a good time to see, do we want other options, right?
Yeah. Were you, Ms. Mullen, were you referencing the MOU between law enforcement and districts?
Yeah.
So the big, okay,
Yeah.
all right, that I have read.
That's that big
okay,
one.
okay, I'm sorry. I thought that it was a specific document relative to SROs. Okay.
Dr. Sain,
Ms. Chrysalis, I just wanted to ask Ms. Mullen to share that. I have not read that document, so if she would share the name of it, or
send it
or
to
send it
Dr. McLaughlin.
perfect.
Sent it to Diana,
And then we can
Christina, and you.
all right,
Okay.
I'll
You
forward
already
it.
got it.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I'll forward it to the full board. Okay.
Okay. And there's many more out there. There's a lot of different individual schools that have taken this, but this goes through, I mean, it says, I think we're supposed to have a policy on this.
Yeah, and as far as I know, this 2019 version, there's very little we can change here. It's
Right.
pretty standard. We've all had to adopt this same document. So that's not the thing that we're able to change.
I mean, before that, I think it was in 1998. That was the last version. So, okay. So, we will. How do we resolve? Right, moving forward.
Yeah, I'll put it on. Please put it on for
Is everyone
old
in
business
accordance?
in August, and I think we can.
Is anyone opposed to it? Does anyone have any concerns or anything in that regard? Okay, perfect. All right. I move then to our next agenda item, which is our second public comment section. Mr. Crude, I wanted to ask you, since we read this same paragraph for our first public, and it's lengthy, am I required to read all of it again for the second portion?
You do not have to. It is in the agenda.
It is.
And you already read it once. So
if I can reference all, look at the 3 paragraphs of the public comment section, and we will hold each comment to 3 minutes for a total of 30 minutes. Mr. Minkowitz, was there any other comments? And if so, first of all, were there any in Spanish for the second portion of non-agenda items?
I do not see any in Spanish.
Okay.
I see 20 items. I can start with item number 1.
Yes, please.
George Knowles, 12 South Street. Dover School District should provide universal testing for COVID-19 to ensure a safe environment for students and teachers. Comment number 2. George Knowles, 12 South Street. I, George Knowles, have brought to the Dover School District a free program for universal testing for COVID-19. This program would have screened out asymptomatic and pre-symptomatic individuals who are the primary spreaders of COVID-19. The test would have been point-of-care antigen tests conducted on school grounds with results within minutes. They would have been given periodically as required during the school year. In this way, Dover schools could have opened in September safely and normally. The Dover School Administration has turned down this offer out of hand and without an in-depth study. The schools will reopen in September in a hybrid, distorted, and abnormal way. I predict that in spite of the great sacrifices by students, parents, teachers, and staff, one or more of these schools will be forced to close again within months of opening. This is because of the inexperience of the school board and its great deference to the school administrators. Once again, the poor white, black, and brown children of Dover will have to pay the price. The next comment is from Rosanna.
I don't think so. Is
No.
it?
Oh, okay. I don't see a number. I don't
It's
see.
Naomi Villa.
Okay. I don't see it on my screen, but I can read it. I want to start by saying I hope that we don't continue wasting valuable time by entertaining complaints and revengeful personal agendas by the former Board of Education members. As a parent, it's challenging to sit and listen to unproductive, malicious accusations against the current Board of Ed members. My questions are the following. Is there a possibility to offer virtual classes as the primary form of teaching? This will encourage social distancing by giving parents the option to utilize online learning. Some parents do want their children to attend school. If some students do online learning, there will be more space in classes to follow social distancing. 2, if a teacher or student tests positive for COVID, will all students in that class be required to get tested? Will they have to quarantine? If they do need testing, who will pay for this test? Number 3, if a teacher tests positive for COVID, are they required to quarantine? And will their leave be paid for? Number 4, do you believe the stress on following COVID safety guidelines will affect teachers from properly teaching? Number 5, will doctor notes be accepted to exempt students from attending school if a student has a pre-existing medical condition? Number 6, how will students and staff be affected when the first teacher in their school dies from this? The first parent or guardian of a student that brought it home? The first student? Please answer anything you have direct answers to. I will follow up with an email for the questions that are not answered. Thank you. The next question. Rosanna Anastasio, 82A Belmont Ave. Good evening, members of the board. As a mom of 3, I'm very concerned about the reopening of the schools in the fall. I would like to know if parents will have the option of having our kids do the virtual schooling. I myself feel more comfortable having my kids at home since I know they will not be able to wear a mask all day. I would like to know if maybe the teachers can teach the kids via Google Meet so they can understand whether it's math or whatever subject, and then have them finish on their own. I would also be concerned for the teachers. We have very good teachers and would also be very concerned for their well-being. Thank you. The next comment is from Susan Shower, 346 West Clinton Street. In reference to the Dover BOE's last meeting, I would like to say thank you for taking the time to work on setting goals for the future of our district. It takes commitment and time to do this work, then come together and agree on the goals. I've asked for this process to take place for 3 years, and although long overdue, I am thankful for your effort. With the goals in mind, and at the time I write this question, I do not yet see the goals on the agenda for vote. But with that said, I will bring to the board's attention that the continued impact of social media posts by board members regarding the issues of the day, both locally and nationally, could impact the community's view on how the board as a whole makes its decisions for the Dover students. Based on students made at prior board meetings, and as a reminder, board meetings and the decisions they make while sitting as a board body should be made as it involves the Dover student and community. Information from the current superintendent, the building administrators, staff, and most importantly, the impact on current students should be the components that help the Dover BOE make decisions. BOE members take an oath that they will not take any private action that may compromise the board. I believe public comments, statements do compromise the board and chip away at the confidence of the public and staff. Number 7, TC McCourt, 32 Davis Avenue. I don't have any children in Dover Public Schools, but that doesn't change the fact that I'm terrified for the safety of every teacher, student, staff member, and parent. Schools should open in September. People will die because of prematurely opened schools. This isn't hyperbole, it's a fact. Even the Surgeon General now says that our transmission rate must drop before schools are open. Simply put, virtual distance learning should be the norm until there is a working vaccine. I can't imagine how hard an all virtual setup would be on single parents or working parents without the luxury of working from home. But I'm sorry, burying a loved one taken too soon would be even harder.
Excuse me, Mr. Minkowitz, I just
Yep.
want to make sure. I believe we lost Mr. Robles. Is Brian still available to reach
Yeah,
out to him?
Brian's
Thank
here.
you.
He'll let him in if he sees him in the waiting room.
Thank you.
The next one, non-agenda item, Dr. Ernie Palestis. Dear members of the Board of Education, when there's a question about the ethical behavior of a particular individual or individuals who serve on the Board of Education, the law provides a process in which any person can request the involvement of a neutral state agency to settle the dispute. The name of this neutral agency is the School Ethics Commission. The advantage of using a neutral state agency is that, simply put, the agency is neutral. There are no politics involved. This process starts as a complaint and can continue into a trial at New Jersey Administrative Law Court. When the commission finds that there has been a violation, it may recommend a penalty to the Commissioner of Education, which may include removal from the Dover Board of Ed or other consequences. The reason that I'm discussing the process used when questions about board members' behavior arise is that I want everyone to know upfront that today I submitted a request to the Ethics Commission to determine if the behavior of several Dover Board of Ed members is unethical as defined by law. This is a serious legal issue now, and it will be time-consuming for me. I've mentioned in previous communication to this board that I do not want to serve as your ethics police. My hope is that the full board will address ethics as a goal. Frankly, I was ready to take a backseat and let all of this go until I read your threatening warning on the agenda. I allege that several Dover Board of Ed members committed both prohibited acts and violations of Code of Ethics for school board members. I also want this board to fully understand that the ethics charges that I filed today are based on evidence. Yes, this evidence consists of emails that were sent to an inner circle while the rest of the board was omitted. But the evidence that I present during our trial will consist of eyewitness accounts, print news media, electronic news media, personal tweets, Facebook posts, and texts. When the board members involved are on the witness stand, I will have a long list of questions. I have a sense that some members of the board have no idea about how bad the actions of some of you members have been. That is because you never saw the emails. I will not reveal the names of the board members that have charged with the ethics violations at this time. I believe that I can document 18 violations by the Dover Board of Ed members in my complaint. This board needs immediate and systematic change. Some members have damaged our community, our school district, and some have no credibility at all. It is my hope that the ethics process will serve as the beginning of the change process. I will accept whatever decision that the Ethics Commission makes in this matter. Respectfully submitted, Dr. Ernie Oestes. Next one, Maria Chacon, 82 East Blackwell Street. Good evening. Good evening, Superintendent. In the matter of diversity, I ask that when a teacher leaves one of our school, for example, if they retire or move, that the new teach hire be a person of color. The majority of our teachers are white, and we have only 2 Black teachers and a handful of other people of color. Can you help with the culture change in our community? We all need to do better. We need better representation in our schools. When COVID-19 is no longer, will the schools finally have a tennis team as we have a tennis court catching cobwebs because it is not being utilized? I've asked this several times at BOE meetings, and I would like our kids to have opportunities like our neighboring towns do. Can we have a football team instead of our kids having to play for other towns? This is a constant complaint from our kids. Will the public be able to use the tennis courts? Can the public run on the track at the middle school? Many kids and adults would enjoy the use of the school amenities. Thank you. The next one is by Maria Chacon, 82 East Blackwell. Please let us know the options for remote learning now that the governor has approved it. How will the kids that opt for remote learning get their laptops from the schools? Is there a specific form to fill out? Lastly, I commend you for all your patience and peaceful demeanor while listening to old Board of Ed members badger you. I hope that they stop and think of the kids instead of their own revengeful agendas. The next one, Sandra, 44 Leonard Street. My child is supposed to go full-time pre-K with an IEP at Head Start. If hybrid classes are done, will that include the pre-K classes? The next one. I don't see who it's from. Greetings, board members. First, let me say that being a biologist, I'm well aware of and empathetic to how difficult it must be to establish a restart and recovery plan when our understanding of the current pandemic is so volatile and ever-changing. Please know I appreciate and applaud all of your efforts, and I'm certain you will act with the best interest of our children and community at heart. My questions, comments for the board this evening are as follows. Number 1, kindly advise where we stand with regard to clarification of statutory law concerning representation on boards of ed for sending districts as it relates to Victory Gardens Dover send receive arrangement. Number 2, Governor Murphy has announced that parents have the option to choose all remote learning. Will residents in Victory Gardens who choose to allow their children to learn remotely be eligible for an aid in lieu of transportation credit? Number 3, what tutoring services, if any, are available for the upcoming school year for Dover High School students? As you may recall, I had indicated in a message I submitted at the last Board of Ed meeting that I would be willing to help tutor students after school in various subjects. Number 4, has the district considered hosting virtual classes during regularly scheduled class periods to keep students accountable as if they were physically reporting to school? Thank you for your time and consideration in answering my questions. Number
Mr.
30.
Minkwitz, I think
Yep.
that was from, because I know that you didn't see the name right away.
I
That
didn't.
was from Miss Mendoza.
Okay, thank you. Number 13.
Mr. Minkowitz, one
yeah.
second. Mr. Crute, where are we in the 30-minute mark?
We still have about 15 minutes to go.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Minkowitz.
The next one is Angela Ramos Gama, 32 Washington Ave. I want to say thank you to the principal from middle school, Mr. Jaime, for his great disposition to talk with the parents and work with them for the best benefit of the school and students. Welcome to Dover Middle School, Mr. Jaime. The next one is Dan Perez, 166 Baker Street. My name is Daniel Antonio Perez, Dover High School class of 2015, St. John's University class of 2020. I'm commenting to advocate for the implementation of a more robust and comprehensive history taught in Dover schools. A vast majority of Dover students are Latin and or people of color. Given this fact, it is a shame that I, like countless other Dover students, past and present, never see ourselves in what we are taught. Not once did I learn about Cesar Chavez, not once did I learn about Toussaint Louverture or the Lenape natives to which this land we call Dover belongs. I never learned about Medgar Evers or Fred Hampton. I was shown our friend Martin for 4 years straight in elementary school, from what I remember. I never learned about Newark, Zoot Suit, or Stonewall riots. I never learned about the Black Panthers or the Young Lords. It goes beyond history class as well. I only read one Langston Hughes poem at school, never read Richard Wright, James Baldwin, nor Neruda. Never learned about John Michael Basquiat in art class or Katherine Johnson in science. All these things I had to learn on my own. I'll bet that kids in Dover schools still never learn about these people and events. I'll also bet that some or most of the people on the board aren't familiar with some or most of these people and events. That is an issue. Teach us about our history, because if we do not know it, we are doomed to repeat it. Do better. The next one is from Gabriel Gomez, 85 Brook Drive. As a current student, I see no need whatsoever to have SROs in our schools and request they be removed immediately. The SROs directly risk the infringement of student rights in schools. I am personally terrified of the police, so having them in our school buildings actually makes me feel less safe. If the schools feel that students need protection, social workers and psychiatrists should be hired instead of SROs to prevent whatever dangers the SROs are meant to protect against. Additionally, I call upon the board and the assistant superintendent to create a more robust curriculum that include a more in-depth look at Black history, Latina history, and LGBTQ+ history. Additionally, all staff, teachers, administrators, board members, and students should be trained in anti-racism. The next comment is from Felipe Davia from Dover. Felipe, class of 08. I'm commenting to request that we push Dover schools to incorporate Black-led anti-racism training and programs into their schools. These programs must be put in place for both students and administration. We must take action against structural, societal, and individual racism through all channels available. The faculty and administration must be competent when considering and communicating with Black, Latin, and LGBTQA+ community students. To supplement, I am also requesting the inclusion of a more robust history curriculum that includes the histories of the aforementioned groups in order to inform faculty, students, and make change in the greater social fabric regarding the accomplishments and oppression that these groups faced. The next one. I see a time, but I don't see a name. Dr. McLaughlin, do you see a name for number 17?
Carol, I see Carol Leone, 8 Millbrook Avenue, Dover, New Jersey.
Oh, okay, thank you. I'm commenting this evening to request that the Dover School Board take action on removing SROs completely, that our faculty, administration, and student body receive Black-led anti-racism trainings, and that there be an integration of a more robust Black, Latina, and LGBTQA+ history curriculum. The SRO's position must be eliminated entirely, given that it can lead to the infringement of students' rights. They are used more as a tactic of fear and intimidation, which falls into the system of policing in low-income areas. This follows the pattern used in Dover. In the Black Lives Matter protest on July 3rd, 2020, multiple police departments were called to police us. We deem police to be off our streets and out of our schools. Replacing them, I request more counselors and competent mental health resources for students. Make no, oh, sorry about that. Make no mistake, just because we are a predominantly minority school district, that does not mean that we are not confronted with racism at home, in our community, and our raise of Dover. We must take action against structural, societal, and individual racism through all channels available. Considering this, I am requesting that we incorporate Black-led anti-racism trainings and programs for students, faculty, and administration. The faculty and administration must be competent when considering and communicating with Black, Latina, and LGBTQA community students. To supplement, I am also requesting the inclusion of a more robust history curriculum that includes the histories of the aforementioned groups in order to inform faculty, students, and make change in the greater social fabric regarding the accomplishments and oppression that these groups face.
Mr. Minkowicz, I believe I lost, is that last comment that you made also from Ms. Carol Leon, or was there someone else?
I think it's the same.
It just looked like you were repeating it, so I just want to make sure that it's not from a different
Except,
person.
yeah, a few of them sound repeated, a few of the paragraphs.
So was the last one that you read from Ms. Carol Leon?
The one
Yes.
that's done.
Okay.
There's still more there.
From Ms. Carol Leon is what I was asking. Perfect, thank you.
I'm
The end of that comment, Jim, it starts with I am concerned about the Dover policy.
Yeah, then I can't see the end of it. It keeps jumping to the next one. Wait a minute. I'm concerned about the Dover policy regarding student privacy and immigration enforcement. Our school district's job is to protect the student body, not to enforce immigration law. This policy states the superintendent and school district attorney must be consulted with before making any decisions without taking into consideration. Yeah, I have, all right.
I can finish it if.
Yeah, I can't
Okay,
see it.
taking into consideration that neither of these two individuals are immigration attorneys, there should be zero wiggle room for the superintendent or school district attorney to make a decision on the enforcement of immigration of any student, according to the New Jersey Alliance for Immigration Justice, under the 10th Amendment to the US Constitution. The federal government is not allowed to compel state or local governments, including school districts, to enforce immigration law. Oops.
And I can read, there are three remaining. Scott Harris, 152 Park Heights Ave. My apologies for joining late. I hope I did not miss the answer to the question I'm about to ask, but was just wondering if, sorry.
I can finish it. If full-time virtual learning will be an option this school year.
Yes, thank you. The next one is Teresa Mendoza, 36 Adams Ave. Thank you for addressing the tax increase for Victory Garden residents. It is my understanding Victory Gardens residents must pay the increase by August 1st. Will Dover's cost adjustment take effect prior to the tax due date in Victory Gardens? Please advise. Thank you, Teresa Mendoza. The final one, John Caniglio, 24 Taylortown Road. Good evening. I'd like to make one statement about the social media discussion that was mentioned earlier tonight. Placing the disclaimer, I speak in my own personal capacity. Before or after any statements that are made on social media is a nice statement. However, when people see my name, John Caniglio, they know that I proudly represent the Dover School District as a teacher in the town of Dover. When the community sees students made by the members of the board on social media, you are representing this board and this community, regardless if you write a disclaimer or not. As a teacher, I cannot get a free pass on social media and write these comments are on my own personal capacity and write whatever I choose. Teachers and board members have every right to our opinions, but just as teachers are held to a higher standard, that same standard applies to the members of the board as well. Thank you. And that seems to be the end of the comments.
Thank you, Mr. Minkowitz. I know it's not easy to read from those Google forms, so I thank you for your patience, and thank you, Dr. McLaughlin and Ms. Dalapaloo, for helping out. I know those are difficult to read sometimes. I don't, for the public. It's just the way they come up. It's hard to read. Dr. McLaughlin, is there any of the public comments that you would like to address this evening, please? We can't hear you. You're on mute, Dr. McLaughlin. Please start.
Sorry about that. One of the comments that I'd like to go back to was one of the early statements in that public comment period. And it was about how will COVID positive cases be handled. And at this point, I have to say that we are still seeking guidance on that. As a matter of fact, it came up in our county meeting today in terms of looking for consistent guidance from the state health department. As you know, Morris County has a number of health departments. Some counties, like Hunterdon County, have one health department. And within the state, different health departments are trying to provide their best advice, but it often varies one from another. So we were told that there is an effort for the state to offer some statewide guidance. This is critically important because if we were to have a staff or student test positive for COVID, we do immediately need to know what our reaction will be. Will it be to close school for 24 hours, 48, or some counties are even advising 72 hours? What would be the protocol for that person coming back to school? What would be the protocol for quarantining for those who are exposed to the individual? And that's where the contact tracing comes in. That, you know, that advice, who would be notified? How would that notification go out? So all of that information right now, I can't give a solid answer to. It's one of the areas we're trying to get guidance on. It's a critically important area. And I just wanted to go back to it so that our public knows that it is an area that we're working hard to have in place as we enter into potentially having in-person students, coming back to school in some capacity. The couple of the other pieces, I know iPads were mentioned. What would be the procedure? We are not yet at a point where to announce the procedure for that, but we certainly will do that well in advance of school starting, so that parents would know and students would know how iPads would be and other technology, because we have laptops as well, would be distributed. I mentioned earlier that pre-K classes are slated to continue running. I know that came up in this comment period. Certainly, our intent this year, as the board knows, and the community may have heard, was to open the track. That was another comment. And I think that continues to be an area that we that we hope that we can do. With COVID, all of our areas were closed down. So it really kind of squashed the plans that we had previously made in regard to the track. And certainly we would love to see our tennis courts used, and it's an area that we'll continue to examine as well. So those were just some of the comments from what was made. I know some of the areas I've already commented on, and Ms. Dallapaloo has commented on, both in our reports and in our replies to the initial comments.
Thank you, Dr. McLaughlin. If you, I know Ms. Naomi Villa provided very specific situations. Ms. Villa, if you're seeing, please direct those questions to Mr. McLaughlin so he can answer a little bit more specifically about those situations, please. I think it was about 4 other questions that she asked outside of the positive testing. Virtual schooling was a topic that was a lot in this second. Can you mention a little bit about, is there any other plan besides, yes, we may be able to do it according to the, anything else that you wanted to add?
As I mentioned before, it's an area that, again, was newly announced and that we're still awaiting state guidance for. So before we announce any kind of final plan, we really hope to put our eyes on the specifics that the governor has in mind and be able to form our plans around that.
Thank you for that summary. And another theme that I saw was our curriculum, right? And our hiring of brown, Black staff members and having more of a robust curriculum for our history and Latin American and even local Lenape, Indians, Native Americans. Could you mention a little bit about what would that look like?
Well, I think we actually have responded to that both in the first comment period and also in our reports. So I think at this point it would be kind of repetitious, but no problem. I think it's important. We are hearing whether the comments were made in the first comment period or the second comment period. We're hearing what our community is sharing with us.
Thank you. I just wanted to make sure we reiterate that we are listening. I heard something of offering to tutoring services. I'm hoping that that's something that Ms. Mendoza can follow up directly with you as well and see if that's something that can actually happen, right? Thank you. Is there any other board member that would like to comment on the public comments that we have here? No? Okay, all right. Is there a motion to recommend closing of this meeting at this time? Mr.
I make
Miller?
a motion.
Thank you, Mr. Miller. Is there a second? Ms. Catano, second. As of 11:39 p.m., is there anyone that's in favor of closing?
Aye.
Aye.
Is there any opposed? Thank you for your work. You have a good evening.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night. Good night.